Look out! It's just two middle-aged geeks on film.
I've gotten a letter in the mail, cease and desist.
I don't
to tell you about that before.
I don't think that happened, actually.
Brett says, PJ, knock it the fuck off. That's what he said. Oi!
Oi!
It
Oi!
was actually it included a little like USB stick. I put on my computer, and it's just him coming up. Oi, fucker!
No. Oi, Campbell, because if you don't do it that way, obviously, yeah, you know, because I feel like I'd get so just like, oh my god, he's saying my name. And that'd be fucking terrifying at the same time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to opening week of baseball. I hope everyone is doing well except for the Red Sox fans.
Well, we aren't doing very well because we forgot that the season opened this week, I guess. We are 1-4 and not looking good. Although we did sign our young star pitcher to a good deal, so I'm excited about that. But otherwise, yeah, the Yankees have decided to change the bats, change the game, make everybody pissed off in the meantime. Unrationally pissed off. I'm saying as a Red Sox fan, a Yankee hater. Yeah. They gamed the system and they played the game and they won. So like good on them.
Yeah, 100%. Look, you know, don't hate the player, hate the game.
100%. I hope we get those bats now. Don't bitch and moan about it. Go get those bats and use them.
It's just so funny, man. And I had to wear my finest Yankees gear for you today. This was for you to have to watch and stare at me for the next hour and a half to 2 hours, just staring at me in my Yankees stuff. Yeah, hey, man, look, I have to look at you in a Queen hat every week, okay?
You like Queen, though. It's a different story. It's not like, that's not going to make you vomit. Yankees stuff might actually make me vomit on screen.
Yeah, well, at least it'll get us extra views. People love seeing people throw up and things. Why do you think Jackass is so popular?
That's true. That's very true.
You know, I keep waiting for them to announce another one of those eventually. Like, it almost seems so weird that they didn't, considering how well Jackass Forever did.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like, I know they had the problems with some of the cast and everything else at one point. So at least one of the cast members, I don't know if that like held them back. There's a bitter taste in their mouth because of it potentially. I don't know, but I feel like there's a way around it as well. I mean, you're making that much money for doing something you love, and you figure you might as well keep doing it, especially because they're not getting it younger. I don't know how many you can do those stunts.
Well, I mean, they also have an entirely younger crew now. Like, that was part of the point of Forever, was almost to like pass the torch in some capacity. Yeah, you've never seen this movie, have you?
I never watched any of these movies, honestly. I've never done this. Jackass has never been my thing. I don't know what I get it to a point, but it's never appealed to me to like sit down and watch it. I've seen like what's in there, and it's fine.
Jackass Forever is Jackass's Dial of Destiny.
Okay, so it's an 80-year-old Johnny Knoxville.
It's surprisingly emotional and makes you feel a lot of things while you watch it.
Is it very woke because there's a female person taking over the role of the action hero?
Actually, yes, it is. In fact, that it is all of those things. You'd almost be shocked that James Mangold didn't direct it.
Yeah, well, then that's selling me hard on it. You know what I mean?
I know.
By the way, I just want to let you know it's 2 minutes 47 seconds in before you mentioned Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. That was a new record, I believe.
That was what I was going for, to be honest with you. I keep waiting to find out that people have created like a drinking game for watching our show. And Dial of Destiny being mentioned would be 100% one of them. And so I almost feel bad because if we really leaned in if people were doing that, it would almost just be like, I'm just going to give you alcohol poisoning at that point, you know?
Well, they better really not listen to our episode on Dial of Destiny, because that would be, I don't know what you would do in that one then.
Well, okay. I feel like that's the obvious,
you would pass on
that one because that's specifically about that movie. It's everything else around it at this point.
All right. That's fair.
Also, I promised you I wouldn't take the podcast over with this.
Okay. You promised you
However, I have to bring something up today. And it's very important that I bring it up.
Guys, PJ has to protect the hive.
I have to protect the hive. I am low-key obsessed with The Beekeeper. You have I don't know why. I don't know what it is about that movie, but I watched it for the first time over the weekend. I have not stopped talking about it. Even while I was at the bar, everyone I came in contact with, I was like, "Have you seen The Beekeeper? I need you to watch The Beekeeper." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "What if Jason Statham was in a John Wick movie, but instead of a dog, they kill Felicia Rashad?" That is how I've been selling it to people without any other. Am I wrong?
No, that's about right. I mean, you got to throw in there Kate Lethbridge Stewart for Doctor Who fans,
Uh-huh.
only playing the president. You got to throw in there Josh Hutcherson, basically playing Hunter Biden, for the most part as it was, and yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Dude, that movie is ridiculously fun.
It is. It is absolutely. It is exactly what it had to be and what it's supposed to be. It is a popcorn action packed thriller at its finest. It kind of does. You mentioned John Wick. It kind of does remind me of that. It's not like going to revolutionize action like John Wick did, but John Wick, the original John Wick came out. It was kind of like that low key, like this is what action movies used to be like.
Yeah.
And Beekeeper was pretty much exactly that kind of vibe. This is what action used to be like and can still be.
I feel like Statham has made an entire career out of that,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, most of his action movies all feel very throwbacky to me, whether you're looking at War with him and Jet Li, or if you look at the Transporter movies. I mean,
Mechanic.
like, yeah, The Mechanic, Wild Target, Safe, like, they're all just kind of throwbacks. I mean, especially the Expendables movies, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously he's not the lead, but you would argue he's the co-lead of most of them.
Honestly, I always felt like he was the heart of those films. Like
I mean, yeah,
Sly was like the lead guy, and he was like the main guy because he was like the bigger name. But Statham
right.
was really the one that made that whole movie tick.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree, and it's so I mean, I haven't seen A Working Man yet, but I've heard that it's kind of like it's still good, but it's not Beekeeper levels of good.
I feel
But
the same.
I was so surprised also because I don't love David Ayer. Like, his movies are fine usually, but
Right.
boy, dude, like, as it turns out, he can make a fucking action movie.
No, him and Sam Mendes, they're fine.
Yeah, fine. Sam Mendes, fine. I'm gonna get on my soapbox. Skyfall is not a masterpiece.
Wait. I feel like I just threw that out there, and like people who are not in our fantasy football chat are like, "What the fuck? Why is Sam Mendes taking strays?"
Because Sam Mendes is a bitch. No, not really. Uh,
Uh,
the, yes, go ahead.
it
I'll let
just
you.
all right, it came up in just in I don't even know exactly how it came up, but it was talking about different like movies. Sam Mendes got a movie coming. Oh, he's got the Beatles movies coming out now, so just now that's
All
filming.
in 1 month next year, by the way.
All four
Four
movies
movies
in
in next
one.
April.
What a freaking swing in a time where like shorts and TikTok is like that's the kind of
Yeah.
like film that's what we're doing nowadays, and we're gonna get four movies, and you're gonna expect people to go to four movies, and we can't even get people to go to one movie sometimes. I mean, this is a swing.
Yeah.
I
Big swing,
appreciate
in
it.
fact.
I appreciate the swing. I love a big ambitious swing, but definitely a swing. So somebody bring it up in there. We both kind of both you and I both at the same time, like
Jacob
without
London. I'm calling it out by name.
well, we never really talked. You and I have never really talked about Sam Mendes, but we both kind of came to it at the same time. It's like Jacob London was like basically like extolling the virtues of Sam Mendes, one of the greatest American, probably one of the greatest American filmmakers of our time and stuff. And we're both kind of like, really, Sam Mendes, that guy?
That guy?
Like, it's good. I mean, I first of all, I'll say I think Road to Perdition, Innocent. I love Road to
Yeah,
Perdition.
Road
Probably
to
one of my
Perdition,
favorite films
Innocent.
ever.
Great movie. Tom Hanks
American
as a
Beauty.
villain, very rare.
American Beauty, solid movie, very
Eh,
great movie. I would say it's a great movie overall. 1917, great movie.
I
But
didn't love 1917.
I know you didn't. But I'm
Yeah.
not saying like isn't something I go back to and go, oh, greatest films of the decade. When I go top whatever films, these aren't going to be it. They're just for me. They're like 4-star films. He's a very solid filmmaker, but he's not someone I get excited about at all. That's the
No.
only problem I have. So in that way, shape, or form, we both kind of came at the same time. We're like, Sam Mendes, fine.
Well, my favorite part was it was so unprompted in like this happening, and then it led to the conversation that you and I have on here all the time, where he started being like, "Yeah, well, and Skyfall, it's a masterpiece," and I was all, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" Like, look, you can like Skyfall, and I'm not even saying Skyfall is like a bad movie. It's just for me, it is just low rent. The Dark Knight meets Home Alone, and like Craig is great in it. I just don't love the movie. I find it nonsensical in a bad way because
Right.
it's 100% playing like Joker level vibes of how did Silva put all this together? There's no world that, like, you know what I mean? And it's almost nonsensical to the point that it's ridiculous because these are the grounded Bond movies comparative to like the ones from before. So we're going on about it, and he goes, yeah, but you gave The Beekeeper 5 stars. And I was like, I gave it 5 stars for being the most thrillingly fun thing I'd seen in a while, not because it's a masterpiece. Like, I don't tend to use that word for things very often, and we're getting real liberal with it if we're calling Skyfall a masterpiece.
Right. We've had this conversation too. There's 5-star movies and there's 5-star movies. There's different kinds of 5-star movies. Like Tommy Boy, 5-star movie, absolutely 5-star movie. Not putting up like some of the greatest pieces of art of all time, kind of thing. No. Not in that way that they are like on the way that like it was trying to be described as. Again, Beekeeper, I only gave like a 4 stars, so I got 3.5, 4 stars. But I completely appreciate, understand the 5-star reference for you.
Yeah, look, man, I'm just saying it this way because the truth of the matter is that I went into that movie not anticipating to love it. Yeah. Like, I thought it was gonna. I've heard people talking about it, and I thought no one was being serious. And then I watched it. I was so into it. I ran 7 miles. It got me so amped while I was watching it.
You are a little late to the game because I know I did say I had a similar period like you. I don't know if I went to the chat as much as you did, but let's put it this way. Friends of the show and good friends of ours, Andrew Guy and Ben Bateman, they used to run podcast, Action Movie Anatomy. That's how I got to know them, and I worked with them for a while on that. And their show was always about all these great throwback action movies and everything else. And I got to be friends with Class Action's Richard R. Jarvie through them. And this film to me was so perfectly acclimated to that. I actually had to text them about it because I don't text them about movies very much and as much as I used to. They're very busy people. Actually, Andrew Guy, love him. He's on Matlock now. You can see him on Matlock.
Yeah, I know. Unreal, by the way. Our boy Andrew Guy is now on Matlock.
Yeah, and doing great too. He's doing wonderful.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah. Look, I'm going to say this right now, and this might get me a lot of heat from a lot of people, but when we were doing the Schmodown back in the day, it's a show we don't talk about that a lot. But one of the things that I thought we were really lucky about in having that was having Andrew Guy and Ben Bateman, but especially with Guy, that dude's acting chops are like ridiculously good. And I think for the final like 2 seasons or so, when we really leaned on Guy's character and letting him act, the show was never better than that. And then when they finally got him on the desk on top of it, Guy really became like the secret sauce of everything. And so now to see him doing movies, to see him doing television, like, I'm so happy for him because I think he's just immensely talented, and we were really lucky to have him then. And anyone who like puts him in a thing now is lucky to have him.
100%. I will say that, like, yeah, I agree with you about the show. He was, I'll say it, he was the best performer we had, honestly. I mean, we had some good performers and some fine performers. I would show out Brother Lomos was fun in the last season, of course. Rick Rass was good. Mike Kalinowski had some good effort, but when it comes down to performances, it was Andrew Guy. He was like the top-notch guy. And putting him on the desk as an announcer, like, because he was such a bad guy. It's a wrestling TV show kind of. That's how it was. So he was the bad guy for a while. That's what he excelled at. But then he became the host, and it was a completely different personality as a host with Mark Ellis, and he just had great host vibe. But he really kept the show going, know what to do. I love the guy. I love the guy tremendously, and he's a really good friend of ours. So I'm so excited. I'm so happy for him doing good things, for sure. But I will throw out there again, just bringing it back. He is in Matlock. But anyway, back to the Beekeeper. I actually texted him and Ben about this. I'm like, oh my God, have you guys seen this? Because my God, this is a movie that you would have had an Action Movie Anatomy and loved it. Andrew Guy just texted back, protect the hive. And I was like, yeah, he gets it.
Yeah, he gets it. It's so funny too, because I'll say this. I was pleasantly surprised by how brutal the movie was. In a way that I don't think a lot of American action movies are these days.
Yeah.
Like, it had no problem straight up having people's fingers cut off on screen and things like that. And it's, David Ayer is actually known for having a, like, this almost sounds mean, but sadistic side to a lot of his stuff. Just kind of like brutally in your face type of things. I am so excited that Timo Tahara is doing the next one.
Yeah.
Because you see the action in the first one, and now Timo's doing it. If you've never seen The Night Comes for Us or any of the stuff that Timo did for like VHS, also funny enough, Andrew Guy in one of the VHS movies.
That's right. Very briefly in that, it's true.
Very briefly, but he is there. But Timo is an insane action director. He's an insane director, period. But his action movies in particular, again, please watch The Night Comes for Us. The idea of him working with Statham has me so amped.
Is he doing Beekeeper too? Because I thought he was doing Nobody too.
He's doing both.
He is doing, okay. I'm looking at his wiki now. I don't see Beekeeper 2 on his wiki.
It was announced like last month.
Okay. I thought I heard that too. But I was kind of, when I didn't see it on the wiki, that's why I was just kind of checking with you. I mean, I'm glad he's doing Nobody too also, because that's awesome, because that's going to be another. Nobody is one of those other films like that did hit me similarly to Beekeeper and everything else, where it was like kind of like, that's an old school great action movie.
Yeah, Timo is set to helm the Beekeeper too.
Okay, cool. Both great people.
I am excited for Nobody too, though. Yeah. Also, for the same reason, because I really like the first one, but I think getting someone like Timo, who is great with action and really pushing the boundaries of it, it also means that they're really going for it, which I think is a huge swing. I think that we're going to see, if you've seen The Raid, and then you get to The Raid 2, that like bump up in quality.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm anticipating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so too. I think it might be quite, I don't know, maybe that significant, but maybe it could be.
Oh, I don't know, man. Because like, as much as I love the first Nobody, it's not like the most exciting action movie.
Get that?
You know, like Bob Odenkirk is why that movie is fun.
Correct. And Christopher Lloyd.
For that matter. But, you know, things that I think about from time to time, because I don't know, I like seeing guys like Timo getting work like this too. And he's been hinting recently, I guess, that he might be doing a comic book movie too.
I have seen that. I have heard him kind of rumored around, thrown around. I didn't hear what it would be necessarily, but he's got a lot of cool. I mean, he's an action guy, but his real influences stem from kind of horror in a way. He like, I know he's a big psycho guy. He loves that the Tommy Lee Wallace's It.
Yes.
Or like one of his big influences mentioned and everything else. So he definitely has that horror vibe to it. Horror and action tend to overlap very well as far as
they sure do.
As far as like you got to raise the tension, the stakes, and everything else. So I think that's why, personally, someone like you and me who love horror films and love our action films as well, this is a good mixture of both. So
I hope that the Beekeeper 2 has some of those moments where, you know, they kind of did it in the first one. It actually made me happy, where the guys go to attack Statham at the barn and they like see his shadow and he's just kind of keeps picking them off one by one. And it's more like an action movie. And you're like, this is the greatest thing or it's more like a horror movie in that regard. And you're just like, this is the best thing in the entire world, because Jason Statham is just being Michael Myers right now.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Like legitimately, he's just moving through the shadows and just one by one picking these dudes off. Oh my God. Dude, what a good movie. I legitimately was so surprised how much fun I had with it.
So much so that he wanted to take over this entire podcast from the Beekeeper. I told him no. I said maybe for Superman 4. But
I mean, look, it'd be a better way to spend our time. And you know how I know that this movie is good? Even Jeff recently rewatched it. Our buddy Jeff, who never rewatches anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Just recently rewatched it, and he texted us and he goes, "Man, that movie fucking slaps." It's like, yeah, man.
It just knows what it is, man. It just knows what it is. It doesn't put any errors. Doesn't want to try to do anything like extremely like out of the box. It just does what it does very, very well. It's exciting. It's action packed. It's Statham being Statham. I mean,
yeah, Statham, we need one of those guys. Statham in everything, to be honest.
He is one of those guys. He's not like an A-list movie star, but he has a certain amount of charisma that you just put him in a movie and you're like, that's gonna tick up the interest level a little bit. It's like, because you like him being him. It's like old school Bruce Willis being Bruce Willis. It's like, it's that kind of vibe.
Well, I think that's honestly like, as weird as it sounds, because Stallone obviously has come up with a couple of movies for him. One was Homefront, one was A Working Man. Obviously the Expendables films. I think even Stallone is like, he's just so likable. You just like Statham being Statham, and I just want to keep putting him in stuff that allows Statham to be Statham, because I think he really would have been like one of those big 80s, 90s movie star types had that era not already started to kind of like wane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and here's the thing. He keeps making movies and they always make pretty decent money.
Decent enough,
People
yeah.
go, you know?
He is the heir apparent and probably succession already, because I believe, I'd say to Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson's kind of retired from that like old man action hero kind of guy. That's basically what Statham is kind of like. I mean, he's been there during Neeson, but like without Neeson being around, he's probably the top guy to do that. He's gonna you throw $20 to $30 million at a film, you put him in the lead, you put the action in there, and you like kind of step back and let him do his thing, and he'll make you like 50 to 60 million pretty much on it.
Yeah. I wish A-Team 2 had happened with the Liam Neeson years, because that was such a goddamn bummer. And especially because weirdly enough, it was actually the Expendables that kind of killed that movie, because that was that summer where we had 3 Men on a Mission movies, because we had the Losers, we had the A-Team, and we had the Expendables.
Right.
And the Expendables was the one that of course took off, because it was the one that promised all these 80s action stars that you loved being in one movie. And it was like, don't get me wrong, it was fun and shit, but like the A-Team was so good and just got so kneecapped by it.
It really did, unfortunately. I would love to have seen more from that as well. It sucks, but sometimes that just unfortunately happens. So it's too late now. Probably they'd have to reboot it again, and I don't know if they're ready to do that. But either way, Statham may continue.
I'd be curious actually, because I feel like the A-Team is meant to be almost a TV show again.
Well, in this day and age, a streaming show for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
But they've missed the boat on definitely. Yeah, you're right. You'd have to reboot it again, especially because Tony Scott produced the original with Ridley.
I almost forgot that. I'm a big Tony Scott fan. I almost forgot that he was a part of that, but it makes a lot of sense. Holy shit! I didn't realize that. I'm looking through. I was throwing my kind of on a wiki trail as we're talking about Statham and his budgets and his. I didn't realize Beekeeper made so much.
Dude, I know,
60 million. And I look back and oh my god, the Meg and the Meg 2. The Meg 2 worldwide made
almost 500 million.
Yeah, 400 million, and the Meg actually made over 500 million.
Yeah,
I did not realize it was that successful. Like I like the Meg and the Meg 2. I don't think I even saw the Meg 2, unfortunately, yet, but like just like that surprised me that made that much back. So good for him.
Dude, I'm telling you, he's consistent. And I'll say this: the Meg 2 is got one of the greatest openings of all time of any movie.
I did watch that soon.
Have you? Do you not know how it opens?
I had no idea. I never seen anything about it except for like I know the first trailer I meant to see in the theaters and never got around to it and just passed me by.
It is bonkers. It starts on a shot of like a lizard, and it's prehistoric times, and the lizard gets eaten by something bigger, and then that something bigger gets eaten by something bigger, and then a T-Rex eats that thing, and then the Meg comes out of the water and eats the T-Rex. Like your whole setup is like there's always a bigger fish, and then a Meg eats a T-Rex.
Wow. Okay. That
it's fucking
like
amazing.
my kind of movie. It sounds actually absolutely my kind of movie.
Yeah, like the first time I watched it, I went, I think this might be a masterpiece just for its opening. Like the rest of the movie is good, don't get me wrong, but like opening wise, 5 minutes, mini masterpiece.
Wow. That's impressive. That is very impressive.
Yeah.
I'll have to definitely see that at some point. You own it, so I'll get through your movies anywhere at some point.
I actually legitimately do have it on there. I played it at the bar the other day. After the Beekeeper, I think it was on Sunday while I was working. It was only Jason Statham movies on. So it was like the Transporter and the Meg 2.
Nice.
And I put on Snatch to like,
Oh, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, because you can't go wrong with Snatch. Not really an action movie, but at least for
close
him.
enough. It's close enough. I mean, you get enough of the vibe with it. And plus, Guy Ritchie his vibe is action even without the action. To be honest, it's very.
I never did see that. 100%. I never did see that Operation Fortune or whatever, the one that they. Yeah, I've heard like not great things, but I want to check it out anyway. So I did recently put it on the account. So I think you should have access to it because it was like $4.99. I bought it. I was like, fuck it, I want to watch it anyway.
I'll get there eventually. I'm still down like I've been going from like your oldest to your newest.
I
And I'm
know.
like at like 700 now. I just watched LA Confidential. Love it, by the way. Love LA Confidential.
Oh, it's so good.
I hadn't seen that like since it was out in the theaters. I forgot all about it. It was almost like basically almost like a new watch. Great film though. Wonderful
Yeah.
like film noir for what we're doing there. But a lot of good stuff.
Did you see what I had I finally put on the Movies Anywhere account recently?
Probably because I always tend to like look really quickly and add to my list. I haven't really listened to what I'm looking forward to. But
it brings me no pleasure to tell you that The Nun 2 finally made it onto my Movies Anywhere account.
You know, I did see that. Luckily, I've already letterboxed that, so I can skip that. I'm not going to worry about it.
No, you gotta keep to it, man. You're gonna have to rewatch it now. It's there.
Son of a bitch.
And you know what the funniest part is? So I ordered this, and I picked it up, and I brought it home, and I was like, "Fuck it." I mean, because I know that a couple of my friends are going through all the Conjuring movies for the first time, and they've been using my Movies Anywhere to do it.
Nice.
So I was like, "Fuck, okay, I guess I have to put The Nun 2 on there so that they have it, so they can watch it." And so I go to pick it up, knowing that, like, oh, good, it'll have a digital code.
Right.
And I like open it, and I do the thing, and there's no digital code inside.
Oh no.
So WB didn't even have like a digital code in the thing, even though it said it had one. So not only did I buy The Nun 2 specifically because I was trying to make sure my friends could watch it,
oh my God.
because I have to have it on physical. I just drag my feet because I don't love the movie as much as the others.
I got it.
So I have to email WB to get a digital code, and I have to jump through extra hoops just to get this goddamn thing on Movies Anywhere, all because they didn't package it. So not only was it like, God, I already don't love this movie. Now I'm jumping through hoops just to get it digitally on my
account. All that for Nun 2, which, yeah, it's
all
not
for nothing.
The end of the world. It's not horrible, but it's not nothing. It's just not great. That's all. We're very sad about Michael Chavez directing the final Conjuring movie. That's the one thing that's kind of throwing us for a loop a little bit as far as that's how we're going to end it. We're going to end with this guy directing it.
I genuinely don't blame Juan for not coming back at this point.
I do kind of too. Well, irrationally, I hate him for it. I'm like, just finish your goddamn piece. You started, finish it off. That's the best way to end it. You with
I know, but
Jack Wilson and Vera from you got to do the whole trio again. But like, I understand it. I can't be mad at him because like really.
How can you go back to WB after all of that? Like after everything that happened with Aquaman 2, like, yeah, dude, he picked up and packed and went to Universal. Like I really don't blame him.
I can't blame him really. That's why I said irrationally.
I know. Also, he's doing all right for himself over there. He's got Megan 2.0 or whatever coming out, or Mithrigan 2.0 if it's what you want to call it, in June, and he's got he just directed something. I don't remember what it is, but he has another movie coming out pretty soon. The Monkey did really well for itself. Like he's doing all right, all things being equal, it seems like.
Yeah, he's doing producing the new Mummy. I knew that much.
Yes, that's correct.
Producing Mortal Kombat 2. He's producing Soulmate, I guess, a sci-fi erotic thriller.
That's the Mithrigan spinoff.
That's Mithrigan. Okay, that's a spinoff. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I want to see more from him directing wise. I'd love to see him get back in the director's chair.
I thought he was directing something soon. Maybe I'm wrong.
Nothing in his wiki. I mean, I don't know, man. I thought I heard that too, that he was going to do something specifically, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to go on with it, unfortunately.
No, I think he's also. I think that the stuff with Aquaman 2 really. I think that was a big bummer for him. Yeah. I think it's so funny because every time I hear anyone talk about it, like I've just heard that it was the worst time he ever had making a movie, and it's like, well, I can't even imagine. And yet, that dude made Furious 7,
right?
Where one of the leads passed away super tragically while they were making it, and Aquaman 2 might have been the worst movie experience he ever had.
Yeah, which I still have not seen Aquaman 2, just saying. I never watched it.
No, I didn't either. Weirdly enough, like
it's the only movie I haven't seen.
Yeah.
It's the only one I haven't seen yet so far. I'm very sad about. I mean, I loved Malignant, which is his last one he made before that, and that was phenomenal.
Malignant was good. Malignant's real good.
Yeah. Oh well, what are you gonna do?
Well, who was it that was saying that Megan wasn't super popular in our fantasy chat recently, and I was like,
I
"What the
remember saying
fuck?"
that.
Was that
That
Jacob?
sounds like a London thing. That
Yeah,
does
I'm
feel like
pretty
a
sure
London
that was
thing.
another Jacob thing. He was like, "I don't think that movie is, like, that popular." And I was like, "I don't think any horror movie had hit pop culture quite the way that McCregan did when it came out." Like, I don't know, man. That movie was stupid popular.
Yeah, I actually might have said something about if it was a box office thing, I might have said something about not expecting it to hit, like I think I might have expected something to hit higher than it potentially,
Oh,
and then
sure.
something I forget. I said something like that potentially, but like I don't know, it depends on the list of movies. But I had to go back to the actual list. But
I don't know.
yeah, it is definitely a big thing. I it's hard, especially considering it's like if you look at it, it's kind of like this like weird cheap carbon copy of Child's Play to a degree. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like a descendant of Child's Play without being Child's Play. Um,
Well,
I do
and
think Megan taking the Terminator 2 route is an interesting choice.
yeah, honestly, that's what I was gonna say is I think the funniest thing is it sounds like it's aping another movie this time, but I'm
So
okay
fun.
with it. It's kinda doing the Happy Death Day to You thing,
Yeah,
where
yeah, that's pretty
instead
much
of
what it
you
is.
doing, like, the obvious continuation, you totally just change genres and go an entirely different way, and I kinda love that.
Right.
So, I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to that. It's 30 minutes in, and not once have we mentioned the fact that we're here to talk about Superman 2,
And
the
we
Richard
actually have
Donner
a
cut again.
lot to talk about because, like, as far as production wise, there's a lot to talk
We did
about
we did the whole
comparatively.
thing all over again.
Pretty much. We did it again.
We did it again. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. We need to start the podcast over.
Yeah.
We're gonna go back to square one, and we'll do it correct. I promise. No, no, no. So yeah, we're here today to talk about a movie that you and I both love very, very much.
Mhm.
But it's a movie that has been rife with controversy for a long time because back in the 70s when they were doing Superman, Mario Puzo wrote one giant Superman film, which they decided to shoot concurrently, which
Right.
was Superman 1 and 2.
Right, that's specific
Donner
that's
was
something I have to throw in there, like, sometimes I even mistaken that growing up. This wasn't a case of shooting Superman and Superman 2 back to back, I mean, this was
no.
concurrently. This was at the
Yeah.
same time. They were filming Superman and Superman 2.
Yeah, so anytime like if they were shooting the stuff for the Daily Planet, they were shooting everything in the Daily Planet for the first and the second movie at the same time.
Right.
If you were at the Fortress of Solitude, you were shooting everything at the same time, et cetera, et cetera. Like, so all this makes sense. They were legitimately shooting these movies together.
Right. Absolutely,
And
and
somewhere
that's
along the way, the producers decided they didn't like Richard Donner anymore. Even though the first movie was a huge hit and was really beloved, they kicked him to the curb and had the script rewritten and brought in a separate director.
yeah, and, Richard Lester, who is more famously known for, doing some Beatles movies, like A Hard
Uh-huh.
Day's Night and Yellow Submarine, I believe it is, and he has a definitely a different look on film than Richard Donner has, and that's for sure. That's
Correct.
saying it light. And he's actually said it himself. He said it himself. It's not Yellow Submarine. I'm sorry. Hard Day's Night and Help is what he did. Um, he is much more of a slapstick, silly comedy person.
Yeah,
He loves that kind of shtick. It's part for like the Beatles movies he was doing. Not bad for a comic book movie necessarily, but
but not for
vibrantly,
Superman.
vibrantly different for what Richard Donner had set up. And Richard Donner was a very epic. He had Superman 1 was an epic film, grandiose, operatic, old timey.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, so much of Superman 2 was set up to be that continuation, direct continuation of the story, one big film. And you threw Richard Lester in there, and all of a sudden you get these more slapsticky kind of bits. And it's so different. The vibe is so different between the
It's
two
too
filmmakers.
funny.
Yeah, it is, and you're gonna
It's
see it
weirdly too
more
funny.
considering that Richard Lester actually directed Superman 3, which we're gonna talk about next time,
Yeah.
and that's a very much different film, and, honestly, a big step down in quality as far as I'm concerned. Spoiler alert if I say that now, but we
Yeah.
know it's a big step down in quality compared to Superman 1 and Superman 2. Superman 2 is, not quite. I'll say probably not as high. I can see I'm safe to saying it's not gonna get the 11 out of 11 that Superman got, but it's a lot closer than Superman 3 is.
Yeah.
There's
Well, it's also because
a lot of Donner stuff in there.
we're now talking about the Donner cut, and
Right.
that's part of why it's so much different. So when I first saw Superman 2 as a kid, I remember watching it and liking it, but I also remember being like, "Huh, this feels different."
Right.
And I didn't know why as a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because I didn't know about any of this, obviously, the first time I saw it, and I
No
had
one
no
did.
idea.
No one
And
did.
so I remember watching it and just being like fascinating. I liked it, but it felt weird and it felt different. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older and the internet was a lot more um accessible for a lot of us, and like we
Right.
started to have it at the houses and stuff like that. And I remember I used to get in so much trouble because I would tie up our phone lines because we had dial up. And I
Yeah.
would tie up the phone lines all the time because I
Same.
was sitting around researching movies. That was what I used the internet for as a kid. Like, I was just researching movies. I was sitting around. Yes, what would you like to
Taking
say?
taking hours to download a trailer.
Yes.
Like for that
Yes.
small bit, like it's like not even
Yeah,
a
it was
small
right in the
piece of
middle of your
screen.
screen. It was about this big.
But it like be 2 hours to get like a minute long trailer or 2 minute long
Uh-huh.
trailer.
And I remember because my favorite thing to do was they used to have the At the Movies website,
Right.
and you could listen to or watch old episodes of At the Movies with
Right.
Ebert and Ropert or Siskel and Ebert. Like, they had the entire everything on there. But I remember that around this time while I was doing all that, this is when the internet started to be really vocal about this lost cut of Superman 2,
Mhm.
which is when I started to learn about everything that had happened behind the scenes. And I never really realized that Superman 2 had been taken away from Richard Donner the way it had. And
Right.
like, there was this movement online that began to get louder and more vocal. And there was people who were actually going on and finding like TV edits of the film that were
Mm.
using more of Donner's cut, like, because, in a lot of TV versions, like we've talked about, they'll put extra things in, they'll take certain things out. And so people were trying to put together basically Frankenstein copies of what they assumed the Donner cut would be.
Right. Absolutely. And
And
part of that is the fact that like we had these different versions out there, but like
yeah,
no one knew what that meant. Like what?
right.
Because like when you watch a TV show and you're like, what is that? Why? Where did that come from? How did that get edited back there? You didn't understand that as a kid. I mean, I'm someone who grew up. I'm older than you are. I grew up as I joke now. I'm the ancient one. You're the young one. Together we're the middle aged geeks. Um,
Yes, correct.
I grew up in the 80s, so Superman 2, I might have seen this in theaters. I don't know for sure. I can't guarantee I saw it. But this was my Superman movie. Superman 2 was my
Mhm.
Superman movie. I watched this I had a VHS copy I taped off HBO or something.
Fuck yeah.
Loved it. Was like definitively, I didn't even watch Superman 1 most of the time. Because I love the big fight at the end. It's a kid thing. The big comic battle at the end.
Well,
Like,
of
these guys
course.
fly
How do you
around New York.
not?
Right. So I remember watching it, but I also used to read Starlog magazine and things like of that nature. And I remember actually reading an article once about the Donner cut. But as a kid, it was kind of like in one ear out the other, in one mind out the other. I didn't really think about it. I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. But I didn't really realize how much that really affected it. Like to me, I was like, I love the film. I got so it's all right, whatever. Fuck Donner. And as a kid, I'm like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like now, like it was much older when I got much older, and I went to college and started looking at my films more. That was like, oh, well, what? That's really shitty. What
Yeah.
happened to him? And like, let me see what happened. Like, I want to see what Donner's film would have been like now, if nothing else, to have gotten to get that alternative version. I love the fact we can get both versions now. It's like, oh, we
Yes.
see what it was, and now we can see what would have been.
Right. And so it's so interesting. Like, I remember watching all that happen. And so people started putting that together because I was having the same thought. I was like, this must be fascinating. So there were like edits you could watch online basically
Right.
that people had created. And WB was suing people
Hmm.
and like sending cease and desist letters and like all this stuff. And people just kept going
Hmm.
because people were like, look, man, we want to see this version of the movie that had Marlon Brando still, the movie that had Gene Hackman still. Like, because when Lester made his movie, they didn't use any of the Brando footage that was shot for this.
They didn't want to pay him.
They didn't want to pay him. They Gene Hackman didn't want to come back because he
Refused out of
was
loyalty
yeah,
to Donner. And it's kind
yeah.
of funny now. Our friend William Harold, same chat. mentioned that, and it's true. I didn't notice it growing up, so I didn't think about it, but like much later on, I noticed it. There's like some lines of dialogue. There's some stand-ins for Hackman at some point, which isn't
Yeah.
quite as noticeable. But this time when they had to fill in some things around him, but there's an ADR actor who like voices Hackman. It's like a Hackman sound alike, and if you're not listening for it, you might get away with it. But then like when you actually hear it and then you key on it once or twice, you can't unhear it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's not Hackman.
No.
Speaking those lines right there. Okay.
No, and, like, the producer sued Chris Reeve over the
Yeah.
movie because he went to
Yes.
go do Somewhere in Time. Like, Superman 2's production's actually insane, and by the time they got him back, Reeve was like, "I'm only doing this if you give me some sort of creative control."
Yeah, he almost didn't come back. He almost tried to find a way out of the project for the same reason or whatever. But then,
Yeah.
like, he got his creative control, which unfortunately, I love Christopher Reeve. I'm not going to slander Christopher Reeve in any way, but unfortunately, that control did end up leading to Superman 4, which is
Yeah.
probably the most
Yeah.
well-intentioned,
Yes. Yes.
well-intentioned car crash you've ever seen. In a way, maybe potentially,
100%, and we will get to that.
unless we do
Boy.
Beekeeper instead. But
Yeah,
but
so, you know, once this all kinda hit a boiling point, WB finally went, "Fuck, man," like, in the world now, we have to remember, like, the 2000s became really cool for a lot of things, and I think the biggest was the advent of DVD,
mhm.
because the advent of DVD meant that we could start doing a lot of things we hadn't been doing as much of, which was special editions and or new cuts of movies, like, not the simple director's cut or like a Star Wars special edition, but we were seeing multiple cuts of movies being put out that may not have seen the light of day nearly as quickly, thanks to people actually like buying lots of physical media and being interested. The Lord of the Rings movies obviously had their extended editions and things like that,
Right.
and we started to see that rising up, and WB finally went, fuck it, we might as well finally see, like,
There's an
we
audience there.
there's an audience there. People are loud about it. They were getting ready to do the Superman Blu-ray box set at the time, or DVD
Mhm.
box set. Now it's a Blu-ray box set, but like they were so amped on doing that that they knew a selling point would also be, what if we do the Donner cut?
Right, and it's true, and also at the same time, there were the beginnings and discussions were being had about Superman Returns. Their
Correct.
return the thing, and obviously Superman Returns, which we'll get into eventually at that point too, is a direct sequel to Superman 2. Kind
Hmm.
of cuts out 3 and 4. It does similarly. It takes some of that unused footage that Donner had about Marlon Brando, uses
Hmm.
Marlon Brando in Superman Returns. And I think that was part of the thing they were doing. Like they were doing all this research and getting the old footage out so they could use it for Superman Returns as well. So it's like, you know what? We're doing all this work already. We can might as well multitask with this footage and stuff if we can do it. And that's for the best of everybody. I mean, I'm so happy that we end up getting it for whatever reason we got it. And so, you know who else is happy in a way, although he was kind of sad too, was Richard Donner himself.
Yeah.
Some great bonus scenes on like the Blu-ray release and non-movies anywhere and everything else you can watch. And you can tell he's very conflicted about it. Like he didn't want to do it because it's very sad for him to like revisit him because he's kind of
Yeah.
heartbroken about it. At the same time, he was glad to actually see it and watch what I forget the guy's name who actually completed it. Michael Thau. Michael Thau
Yeah.
is the guy who actually put it together. And Richard Donner kind of sat in a few times and like oversaw a little bit and was having. It wasn't him putting it together necessarily, but Michael Thau was trying to put it together as religiously as he could, as honorable as he could. And Richard Donner approved it and said it was a great work and pretty much as close as it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a little unreal watching him, because it's like there's like this 15-minute thing about putting the movie together and creating it, and even like they go into it and they were like, look, when Lester took over, they completely changed everything, and Donner even won't even say the dude's name. He's like, I refuse to even like acknowledge
I
that
don't
guy.
know if it was like how like it's kind of funny to me. Like I'm trying to think, does he hold it against Lester or is it just like against the production itself? I gotta feel like he can't really hold it against Lester. He's just a hired guy,
I
so
think
it's
it's
more
a
against
little
the
of A and a
producers.
little of B, to be
Yeah,
honest.
okay, that's fair. I mean, I know it's definitely
Because,
production, people like
yeah.
producers, Salkins and stuff like that. But like, I mean, Lester, I can't fault Lester. He just got hired to do a job.
Oh, I
You
know,
know?
but for him, it's a little more personal than it is for
Right,
you and I comparatively.
right. Yeah, I
But
get that.
he actually brings up too that had had he been able to see it through, he wanted to continue making Superman
Yes.
movies with Reeve and Kidder, and that broke my heart because
Uh,
I think that was the thing, especially now that it'd been a little bit actually since I'd rewatched this version of the movie, and it ends in a place where like I just want more of these adventures
yeah.
under Reeve, under Kidder, under Donner, like having them do this thing. And it it's a little unreal when you watch it because ultimately this is the real Superman 2. And that's not to try to take away anything from people who grew up with the other version. Like I do get it. I understand it
Yeah.
completely. But in the way that this movie has been put together, it feels like the actual continuation. In the way that it's tonally now been reshaped, in the way that it's been edited to feel like the first one. Like it's paced like the first one. It's grandiose like the first one. It takes so much of the like awkward humor out of the action scenes and you're seeing it as a grand Superman film.
I would love to have a conversation or see somebody watch this film, like watch the Superman series and watch this film and not the Lester version. Like watch this version first and see what they think. I had a chance to do that with my son, but I gave my son the option. I said, here, I explained what happened. And this is the thing. He likes Superman 1. Now, this is Superman 2. I said, there's the original theatrical cut that was made. And I told him the story. I said, we have the Richard Donner cut now. And he chose the Lester cut because he goes, I want to see what you saw when you were a kid. I want to see like like
Yeah.
how it was theatrical thing. And I was like, I get that. I understand that. So I gave it to him. We have not watched the Donner cut since. I don't know. He's not a huge Superman guy. So I'm not going to watch Superman 3 or 4. I'm not going to even put him through that.
Yeah.
But eventually I might sit down with Donner with him. But it is like, again, I understand. So I'm one of those people you're talking to me about. Like I grew up with the Lester cut, loved it so much.
So I mean, I grew up with it too.
Definitely understand though, like after seeing a Donner cut, that this Donner cut is assuredly the superior film. Although I will say you have to give it some grace on a couple of different things.
Mhm.
It still is not like it's 75% done. Like the film is
Yeah.
75% done. So there's stuff that had to be. There is some lesser stuff in there. I'm not entirely sure. I never did a full. I'm sure somebody on YouTube has done it. I didn't get a chance to
Mhm.
really look at it to show what lesser stuff has survived into this cut. Some that had to be put in there for
Right.
like story wise purposes, and there is some wonky stuff, and there's some interesting stuff that actually made the film better, which we're going to talk about. I already had texted back and forth about the famous screen test that's in there, which we'll get into
Yeah.
a little bit later on. But beyond that, probably the worst part about this new film is the ending, because if you're looking at it and not knowing the story, it's like, okay, so we're repeating this very same ending with Superman flying around the world real fast and setting cut and pulling back time again. And you're like, well, again, this is worse than the Death Star
Yeah.
coming back Return of the Jedi again. At this point, at least they waited a movie in between. At least they had a movie in between
Right.
before he went back to the well. However, what you don't know, if you don't know the story, is that the fact is when they were filming Superman 1 and 2 simultaneously, they didn't quite have an ending where they're going to end Superman 1, where Superman 2 is going to begin. They said, you know what? Let's shoot our load left, and like we'll put our biggest beat in that we have. We'll put it in Superman 1 to end the film, and then when we get to the ending afterwards, Superman 2, we'll figure out how to finish that story after we're done. And it didn't. There was no finish because they didn't get a chance to it. So they had to like use the original ending that they had shot in a way and use it in Superman 2 as well. So basically get like the same kind of ending. So it does unfortunately suck that way, but you can't really blame that on the film, because even though this is the Richard Donner cut, it's not necessarily completely what you would have seen in the theaters from a Richard Donner completed film back in 1980.
No, but it is, and it does end up being as close as we're gonna get. And it,
Right.
it is kind of funny though to watch it and you see the two endings and you're like, wait, what? But it's so clear which one was meant to be like the original one,
Right.
which is actually the one at the end of the Donner cut.
Right.
Which it just makes, and it's so much better also than the goddamn kiss.
Kiss. Yeah.
The magic kiss that makes Lois forget everything.
Yes.
And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Cool.
And they actually were
Like,
going to go that way until somebody said, I forget who it was, somebody told them, he said, you can't end that way because Clark should never kiss Lois. It should only be Superman kissing Lois. And while it doesn't really work for comics, it does work. That is kind of the rule for the movies, that what we had established at that point. And so he's not wrong at that way. And the magic kiss is probably even worse than the magic the magic time travel stuff. Although I still will hold through. I still think the time travel thing is bad either way around. I'm sorry, Richard Donner. Even in the first film, I always thought like there's a lot of wrong there. There's a lot of weirdness there when you go back in time, but like all of a sudden that erases everything that's bad that's going to happen now. But okay, we'll get to it and we'll let it go because we like the film. But
yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's fine, right? It is what it is. Like I still do obviously really like the movie. I never loved that similarly, but I like it better in the second one as a thing than I do for the first one.
Yeah.
But beggars can't be choosers here, is all I'm saying.
I agree there. I agree.
But I am completely enamored with this movie still. In its current form now, this is the kind of movie that makes me remember why I love movies in the same way that the first one does. Because there's something to be said about the way that it opens with the sequence of, Jarrell putting Terrence Stamp and his minions into the negative zone again.
It's a Friday the 13th opening. Again, basically we're replaying the same thing we got with those at the beginning of Superman
negative zone, the Phantom Zone.
Phantom Zone.
Sorry, I Fantastic Forward the Superman.
You did that. But like we basically it is the same, although it's the beginning of the film instead of the end of the film, we're basically replaying Superman 1. So I'd understand if you were like, wait, what film did I put on?
Yeah.
Although it is different perspectives, it's different angles,
which I love,
and yeah, that's what makes it kind of cool. You're seeing things from different angles, different sides of things. Like the close up of Zod's face becomes more of like instead of like the lips and eyes of Zod, it becomes like the whole face of Zod, which I think is an interesting choice. Either way, but yeah, no, that was the way to kind of get back into it. Is like okay, and then it extends out. That's what the cool thing is. Actually, they did a Return of the King.
Yeah.
They go back to like when they had Return of the King went back to the famous Gandalf and Balrog battle from Two Towers, but then instead of where we went off with the Fellowship, instead of in Return of the King, we followed Gandalf and the Balrog battle. In Superman 2, instead of going to Clark's journey, we kind of sort of follow the Phantom Zone travelers, and we get to see Clark go past them, and we get to see how that goes until the nuclear missile that Lex had thrown out. Lex had put in California. Thrown in California was the one that was thrown up to space, and that's what frees our 3 prisoners that we met in the beginning of Superman 1, which is much better, by the way, than the Lester edition. The entire difference of the film. It's going to be weird talking about this film without I'm not going to try to contrast too much with the Lester stuff because we're watching a Donner cut. We're not reviewing. We chose not to do the Lester cut. We're not going to do Lester cut next week or anything. We're just going to let it go. This is the film. Yeah. But the Lester cut does begin with a big, long segment going to Paris and Lois reporting on terrorists in Paris and Superman coming and there's this big bomb on the Eiffel Tower and Superman it goes into the elevator goes down. Superman takes the elevator, throws it out into space, and that's what happens. Gone. That whole thing is not involved in the original movie at all. Complete Lester fabrication. And so I do miss it only in terms of because I'm so used to it being there. So when it wasn't there, I'm kind of like, interesting. Okay. But so instead we have the remnants of the last film, the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor plot, the real estate plot that really drove the first film. It still has reparations now, or recriminations now, because the bomb that Superman saved New Jersey from is the one that actually frees prisoners from.
And not just that, I mean, even in this movie, it continues on his quest also because when he finally meets Zod and the minions, his whole thing is trying to get Australia and Cuba. He still wants land. So his entire plot device and everything continues to be that he still wants land and real estate, which I think is so funny that every time that's all he wants.
Right.
And that always makes me laugh. I gotta say, man, for being a movie that came out in the 80s and was mostly shot in the 70s, for being a big superhero blockbuster like this, the first movie we talked about, it's so interesting. There's not really action in the movie. It's a lot of Superman doing Superman things, and Superman is awesome, and we're enjoying watching him, save people and stuff. This one actually has the big superhero battles and all these things. And one of the things that I find most impressive continually, and especially with this one, is I really get a feel for these characters having superpowers and these battles feel really kind of very real and very like, yeah, of course they're dated because of when they were made, but there's something to be said about the way that all this stuff is put together and, the way that they really have them breaking guns in half and like tossing things and y they really make it feel tangible, I
Yeah.
guess, and I really love that.
Yeah, me too.
I really
Uh,
believe it?
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to love about this film in that way, shape, or form. It is because it is one and two is one big long storyline together. It makes sense that the big superhero battles at the end of this film, um, and that is the Superman 1 and 2 together is really kind of the blueprint for superhero films even today. It's just a
Yeah.
longer, drawn out version of it over two films instead of over one film. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Absolutely appreciate that.
It and it's so interesting because it really does feel like one film this time now.
Yeah, it
Because
does.
again, Superman 1 and then Superman 2 as it was versus watching it as Superman 2, the Donner cut, they feel like one movie.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really feel drawn to in watching this, and it's why it's the one I go back to, because to me now it feels like a much more complete story,
I agree.
and I really appreciate that because you see a vision,
Right,
all the way through, well, mostly all the way through, as best as humanly possible.
right. And I mean, it's not like the lesser cut doesn't feel that way to a point, but that point is the fact that like 75% of it was Donner's cut. It was mostly Donner's stuff. They just added so much on extra and added this like humor is like the slapsticky kind of stuff and finish things out cartoonishly and like that takes away from the serious vibe that Donner's Cut have. And I say serious vibe in like quotation marks. It's like it's not
I
like
mean, yeah,
it's a comic book movie. It's a superhero comic book movie. There's still those tropes. There's still some very
and it's still
silly
funny.
antics. It's still funny.
Yeah.
But there's like it's kind of it's definitely a different vibe. It's definitely different
Also,
tension throughout.
speaking of that, there's another, like, kind of one-off Superman saving a child and giving the child back to a parent, and then the parent being kind of an asshole who's going to beat their child.
It's
I
Niagara
don't know
Falls.
why that's another, like, kind of running joke thing, but it's a little concerning that, like, the 2 times that he's helped a child, he's given them back to the parents, and the parents are actually kind of awful.
Well, I buy it more this time, at least
Sure.
this time you can say they were amped up. Their kids so much they fell in the Niagara Falls. They're like, oh my god, especially because they just yelled at the kid to like not do something
Right.
like that. So I can get that as a parent. At least he didn't smack him around like the first film.
But it was just weird, right? Like,
Yeah, it was a
I
little
can't
weird.
be the only one who's like, "That's the second joke about child abuse in these movies, which is maybe not aged super well." Again, like, as a parent for you, I can understand why you might have thought about it, but, like, also kinda questionable, just a little bit, like, seems
I
a little weird. I love the entire sequence at Niagara Falls, though, because
yes,
it's so peak what I love about these characters, and one of the things that I like also is that this movie very quickly kind of starts dealing with Lois being a good reporter and figuring out that Clark is Superman.
right.
Because this version of the movie really leans on that from like the opening into the Niagara Falls sequence. And I really love that.
I will say I do love it. I'm a little bit less reserved about it only because, and I don't know if there's something that Donna would have fixed eventually, potentially, or whatever, or even thought about. But there is a couple of times where it almost goes too far comic booky wise, like in terms of like the idea of her like I love the drawing the picture or filling
I
in the
love that.
picture. Loved that. Jumping out the window felt a little far even for Lois. Like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna jump out this window. I mean, it does kind of make sense to like an old like 50s Superman comic
Yes.
book, I guess. So I guess I appreciate it on that level, but as it's grown into this movie, it's kind of a little like that's a little far of a jump for you, like literally, no
It
pun
was, I was
intended.
going to say, it was a little far, but you know what's really funny about that sequence to me and why I like it? Because the hubris of Lois doing that and like trying to call him on it, and Clark being like, "If I'm Superman, I can legitimately make this look like you did this to yourself
Right,
and
right.
not have to save you while saving you." I kind of love that. And it also makes it so that Lois doesn't feel as damselly in distress as
Right.
she might have.
She has her own umbrage there. I
Yeah,
get that. I do get that. I actually will say it's kind of funny. I almost feel like I don't know. I shouldn't say Lester did it better, but this was replaced in the Lester film version.
right.
Because this scene was that because this first scene they were in Paris, whatever. So that was moved to Niagara Falls, and Niagara Falls she just kind of jumps into a raging river, which feels like a little less. It's still dangerous, but it felt a little less dangerous. And then, but Superman does do the same thing. He just burns like the
Yeah.
tree branch down and stuff. It still gets the same point across, though. It just felt like the first one was like that's a very serious. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're wrong about them being the river, you still have a chance of getting out. I kind of felt like this is like
That's fair. I'll give you that.
a little
But
bit.
I love
I
it
do
because
like the idea of it.
yeah, and I love that this one really leans on their relationship in this way because all their interactions are so great throughout the
Right.
movie, and you really feel that like they are really Lois and Clark.
Right.
And
Right.
I really buy that relationship, which is
Mhm.
what I also love is that it's the movie that I get really lost when people say that you can't humanize Superman and you can't relate to him. And I point to this movie in particular, in which the whole thing is he wants to be human. He wants to be able to love. He wants to be able to be just like us. He wants to have a relationship and not be burdened with
Yeah.
these powers. And I really, really, really love that sequence with him and Jarrell.
I do too. I really do. And this is one of the biggest things that was different again in the film because Marlon Brando they didn't want to pay him, so they replaced him with his mother,
Mhm.
the mother character from the first one. Having Marlon Brando do it, despite Christopher Reeves um,
Yeah,
not being thrilled at at Marlon Brando's commitment or performance,
correct.
he still has that charisma where Marlon Brando can read the telephone book and still kind of feel like oh, you're cool, Marlon Brando. So he does let gravitas to it. I do love his sequences with Jor-El in this film as well. It makes it a lot more humanization. Christopher Reeve is acting his ass off on it. He's really showcasing the humanity there. Some would almost say too much is like some people would have said like that he almost seems selfish at times, and it's because he's like, I when is it going to be enough that I've
Yeah,
served like how long? And you know what? There is an argument to be made that that's the idea of Superman is that he doesn't ever fully get that way. But I appreciate the look at humanity, and the important thing is he gets there. It's
right.
okay to have moments of doubt, especially when it comes to falling in love and things of that nature. But he gets proven really quickly, and he determines it.
Also, I mean, like, moments of doubt should be anything for our heroes. I
Mhm.
think that this is a bigger conversation that you and I have had before,
Right.
but I think that there's something to be said that people are not willing to let their heroes be flawed,
Yeah.
and they get weird about it. Like, it's the thing that you see with the Indiana Jones sequels, it's the thing that you see with Luke in The Last
Last
Jedi.
Jedi. Yep.
Yeah, like, people get irrational about these ideas of characters being flawed, and I'm
Right.
not saying that you have to like the movies, but I do feel like a lot of the complaints come down to characters being flawed and
Uh,
not being perfect and not being super heroic all the time, and it's weird to me, man,
yeah.
because I think that humanizing these characters is part of what makes me love them,
Yep.
and that scene when he's like, "This is my choice. I love her. I want to have a life with her, and if this is what's gonna allow me to do that, I am going to do that." Even though, Jor-El is right in
Yeah.
some capacity, though there's also something to be said that Jor-El is also wrong,
Yeah.
right? I
Absolutely.
mean, like, I think that there is a middle ground that both of them don't see.
AI Daddy's wrong. Who would have thunk?
Right? AI daddy.
Pretty much.
That's what he is. I
That's what it
mean,
is. That's exactly what it is.
yeah,
I have to say, like, look, we're gonna have this discussion later on also because Man of Steel is also like has that bit of like Superman not being Superman to a degree, even though
right.
that's the story of Superman becoming Superman. It's it's intentional, and I think it's needed sometimes to have our heroes have moments of doubt, because if they don't have those moments of doubt, then it's a story about a perfect person. You don't want that perfect, like
No,
seeing somebody
exactly.
become that hero and overcome the doubts and odds and things like that's what makes a good hero movie.
I mean, look, there's something to be said about all of these things, right?
Right.
Akira Kurosawa made an entire career out of making movies about the most flawed individuals and lives, and that's part of why we like those movies, and it's part
Mhm.
of why people like George Lucas leaned in and aped on those movies at the same time,
Right.
like, we need to be able to believe that these characters can be flawed because you also want some sort of redemption for them.
Absolutely, 110%. I agree with you on that. So,
So this movie in particular finds that way to do that,
mhm.
especially in this cut because I find the stuff with Brando in it so compelling, which is not shocking. It's Marlon Brando.
Right.
Obviously they worked with his estate to get the footage into the movie and get them paid the right way for it. But you're also right because the other thing is Chris Reeve is acting his ass off.
Oh, 100%. 100%. He is Superman. He is the
Yeah.
reason why these films work. When they work, it's because of him, honestly speaking. Even through like some of like the worst parts of Lester's cut and through 3 and 4. 3 and 4, Christopher Reeve, very innocent.
Yes, very innocent, in fact.
And it's also not a knock at all. I don't think it's a knock on the actress who played his mother,
Hmm.
Lara, Susanna York. It's not a knock on her at all. It's just that when you have Marlon Brando, it just makes that much more sense
Impactful.
and more impactful. Exactly. He just
Well,
has a
especially because you already had him in the first one, right?
right.
Like,
Exactly.
so to
That
have it
continues
pivot
that
and not
story.
be him,
Right.
yeah, it seems weird. So I'm glad that they did it the way that they did here. And my God, dude, the scene after he gives up his powers and he goes to that diner and they have that run in, and this entire scene is new to this movie. But they go to this diner and Clark gets in a fight with a truck driver and he no longer has his powers and he bleeds for the first time.
Yes.
And he's even like shaking a little bit and he goes, "My blood, I see my blood."
Right.
And he realizes that he cannot do this.
Right.
And so he drags himself back to the Fortress of Solitude.
Well,
Oh
I want to
my
interject
god.
really quick. The best part about it was that the fact that like he's okay. He's shocked. He's still gonna
Yeah.
stand up, still be the hero. He's like, I'm still gonna face this guy down because like
Right.
I'm bleeding, but I'm still my who I am down deep. Gets his ass kicked again and doesn't understand what's happening necessarily. But then when he sees Zod and he understands that everything his father said was right, it's like I had this responsibility not
Yeah.
only to like save the world, but like these are Kryptonians. These are my people who are coming to like destroy humanity, and now I can't fight them. I can't save my real people because that's what really his
Yeah.
people are on Earth now at this point. And that's but he drags himself back, and that sequence when he's like screaming at his father and stuff, who basically
Right.
said, "You're done. Like you do this, you're not coming back." Even like Lois is like, "You can't go back." That's what he said, and he's like, "I don't care. I have to. I have to try. I have to do something."
Well,
And his
in
sheer willpower is like, "All right, fine."
yeah, and dude, when he starts screaming and he just goes, "Father!" and you're just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
And you watch and then the one green
Crystal there,
crystal lights up, and just the moment when he goes and the son becomes the father and the father becomes the son, and
right,
that's when Jor-El, like, there is no more Fortress of Solitude, there is no more Jor-El.
right,
You are now, like, the last of the Kryptonian power is now back in you, you can never get rid of it again.
right.
But god, dude, what a sequence, and again, it's because of the Brando of it all.
Mm.
As weird as it may be, and as many misgivings as Reeve may have had working with Brando on these movies, there is nothing you can't downplay how important Brando ends up being to the movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. He just lends a certain amount of gravitas to it, and he just adds a certain amount of impactfulness to it. When Christopher Reeve has that performance that he gives because of Marlon Brando's just certain, he's that guy. He's just that
Yeah.
guy that you look at, and you're like, okay, I believe what he's saying. I think this is a powerful moment, and Christopher Reeve acts off that and works his ass off and makes it work.
Also, your cat clearly agrees with us.
I know.
I heard the meowing in the background where the cat's like, "Yeah, you're right, Marlon Brando, man."
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. It just made me laugh because it was like, "Oh, the cat agrees with us on our praise of Marlon Brando in this, and
Uh,
I'm okay with that."
One cat gets
Um,
very loud and very insistent on being heard at
mm,
times.
I so cat.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
I was gonna say, I mean, so cat. Boy, man, I gotta say too, just in general, the the way that this movie has been put back together, you gotta give them credit for the visual effects that they used in it to put it together and, like, finish a bunch of the things that were never finished. They said there were, like, 100 special effects shots, I think, or something like that, but when everything was said and done, but they made everything they did looks like it would have looked had it been released in the '70s or
Right.
in the '80s, and I really love that too because it makes it a much more seamless, um, like, director's cut, and it feels of its time. It doesn't feel like it was done in 2006.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely. I do want to interrupt really briefly. We do this every once in a while. Breaking news happens, and I don't talk about it. John Wick 5 happening with
Oh,
Keanu Reeves
what?
returning to star, Chad Stileski back to direct and produce.
God
It just
damn
got announced
it.
at CinemaCon. uh,
Well, there
Donnie
goes the
Yen,
what was
Donnie Yen
that?
directed Kane. Donnie Yen directed Kane spinoff is coming. An animated version is coming, and also
The
John Wick
anime we
5.
knew about. Oh,
Yeah,
So Donnie Yen is directing Kane?
he's directing the Kane character spinoff,
That
and
makes
yes,
sense, honestly.
yeah.
I kind of assumed that was what they were gonna do.
Mhm.
Because he's already a good filmmaker and that was always my choice,
Yes, makes
would
sense.
be for him to direct it because it also means that he's gonna be able to choreograph the fight scenes. He's a filmmaker that is good at making character stuff. I don't know. This is great. This is
Yeah.
great news.
Yeah, but yeah, this John Wick 5 was definitely the biggest surprise. I kind of thought it was gone, but
Dude,
John Wick Chapter 5 with Keanu Reeves returning to star, franchise filmmaker Chad Stileski back to direct and produce. So, you
oh,
know
wow.
what?
No, so the animated film you're talking about is not the same one. We're
No, it's
getting
different.
there. Wow, this is a movie, not the series, because there's an
This is
anime series coming.
Yes, this is an animated movie coming as well
Yeah,
to this thing.
prequel.
Yeah, so I'm a little surprised that we're doing it, but I guess they gave them enough enough bucks and they were able to
Oh,
crack the code
fuck.
for what they wanted. So,
You know what that means?
what does that mean to you?
Highlander's fucking dead, dude.
I think so too. I think so too.
I genuinely think Highlander's fucking dead, and
Yeah.
I'm just so sad.
I am too. I mean, I'm happy to see John Wick come back. I think if it's done for the right reasons, and Keanu and Chad both think they have a story to tell, then I'm on board with it. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully it wasn't just a big bag of money that made them like say, oh, "Okay, we'll do it."
No,
Hopefully, but
because I think that they've been pretty insistent ultimately that they'd only come back to it if they felt there was something to be said for it.
right,
So I am glad that it's taken as long as it has to this point to even announce it.
right,
It definitely feels like they're taking their time with it. They're going to make and I think that also bodes well for Ballerina, frankly.
yeah, I think so too. Uh,
It means that the stuff that they've done with Ballerina, I'd already heard it tested well.
mhm.
Then they one with the reshoots went even better.
Yep,
So that's great. Very hopeful for that movie.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
just love this franchise. I just don't also want it to get run into the ground.
Agreed. That's always the worst possible solution. So we'll have to see how it goes down, but I just wanted to interrupt real quick about that. I thought it was big enough to I don't want to derail our Superman 2 show too much, but I thought it was enough to kind of like break in. Considering it's John Wick stuff is stuff we talk about all the time. And we've done the for John Wick franchise and we'll continue to the John Wick franchise. We're gonna cover Ballerina when it comes out. And we're gonna cover John Wick 5 now when it comes out, and the animated prequel when it comes out, probably. We're gonna cover them all.
I'm
But
so you know what's interesting about that animated prequel?
mm,
They did a comic a couple of years
mhm,
ago.
mhm,
That was like a prequel comic. So I
right.
wonder if they're adapting that and
Could be.
or if they're doing like another story kind of around it because they've only done the one. Greg Pak wrote it and it was real good.
Right, right. Okay.
So I'm very curious if it's an adaptation of that, if it's like or if it's something else with it. So now I'm like, now my brain's all going about it.
Yeah.
I'm just so fucking curious.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. We're going to learn a lot in the next following months, I believe. That's what we're going to see. So, yeah, the anime.
Oh,
Okay, so John
also,
Wick anime is going to Keanu Reeves is voicing it, and then it
yeah.
features John Wick killing all of his rivals in one night to free himself from the high table. That's the prequel movie.
Oh, so no, this is a totally different story then. So I like that.
Mhm.
That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
me
Also,
as well.
not that it has to do with John Wick, but it's also a Lionsgate thing. Is they are officially doing Sunrise of the Reaping, which is going to be the 6th Hunger Games film,
Yep, the
and
Woody
Billy
Harrelson version.
Ray.
Yep.
Yeah, the Woody Harrelson one based on the book that just came out, and Billy Ray is set to write the film, and he was the writer on the original film.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, and I'll throw out there what the hell went out since we already broke it down. The Long Walk, Stephen King book, is coming out on September 12th. Great cast. David Johnson's in it. Mark Hamill's in it.
Oh yeah,
J.T. Muller directed it, or I mean, did not direct it. He wrote it, and
like
I
JT Muller.
believe Francis Lawrence is directing it, which is a good thing. Cooper Hoffman's in it as the lead. Could be really cool. Judy Greer, Mark Hamill. So that's another cool thing for sure.
Gotta
So.
wonder, because they didn't say it, but I have to assume also that, speaking of Francis Lawrence, he must be also directing Sunrise of the Reaping, because
I
he
would
has
think.
directed every one of those movies to this point,
I would think so,
outside of the
absolutely.
first one,
Yeah.
obviously.
So, all right.
Interesting. So
Interesting news.
interesting.
Interesting news breaking. I don't want to take up too much more time because we are headline. This is our preamble before we go to Superman 2. Let's get back to Superman 2. But
Protect the hive.
protect the hive. Exactly. Back to Superman 2. I want to throw in there. Well, I don't. What we were talking about earlier. I'm going to bring something back real quick. I think it's the time to talk about it now. We had talked about the Lois sequence before, where Lois was in depth in trying to figure out who Superman was, and jumping out the window was not the good idea. They do have the Niagara Falls sequence where she does it again to try to figure it out. But this takes place. We mentioned it before. This was a screen test. And this is the one that actually I think works better than the jumping out the window, because she has this moment. She wants to confront Clark about the whole situation. And what does she do? She takes a gun out and shoots Clark, knowing that it's Superman. And he gets like, we have that same thing where Superman kind of does the posture change, but he gets really mad. He's kind of like, man, if you were wrong, you would have killed Clark Kent. And even I was kind of thinking the same thing. It was the same thing I was thinking in my head. I'm kind of like, wow, Lois, this is too far. You're just going too far with these things. But then she comes back with, like, with the blank.
Right.
Gotcha.
She knew what she was doing.
I was like, okay, that I like. See, and that's a good Lois pushing the envelope, so to speak. But the best part about that is it's a screen test. It's a screen test that they had to put in because they didn't get to film it during the process. They needed that scene for the film. Donner was there for the screen testing of it, but Christopher Reeve is not acting with Margot Kidder.
No. And honestly, the craziest thing is I would never believe that was a screen test if you didn't tell me.
I would
Because
not at all.
it's so well done. And God, dude, and I think it's so funny. Donner nails it.
Yeah.
You watch Chris Reeve go from Clark Kent to Superman so fast. It's the way his posture changes. It's the way his face changes. We talked about it a little bit in the first one, obviously.
Does that echo that moment in Lois's apartment where it had happened when he's about to tell her and he takes the glasses off and the posture changes, then he kind of goes back quickly. Same thing. He's like, all of a sudden, as soon as that gun happens and Clark's like, the gig is up, everything changes and he becomes Superman. And it's like, damn.
Yeah, dude, it's great.
You'll believe a man can fly, you'll believe glasses can hide an identity.
And you know what, man? The Niagara Falls sequence actually has a great moment involving that, funny enough. Because when he's like, I can't see, and Lois takes his glasses off, and they have that moment where she's kind of looking and he's trying to look away. I love that. Yeah, because, again, it's one of those moments where you're like, damn. And, I mean, that's what leads her to finally do exactly what happens in the screen test sequence of using the blank, because she wants to be sure now.
Right, absolutely. It's a great moment for sure, and like that, I like the idea of that happens because then all of a sudden the king with the kid happens. It's all very quick, so you can kind of understand that in that very moment, Lois chooses not to confront him there. She's kind of like, oh wait, this is all happening so quickly. Then you think about it, and then she comes down. That's why she confronts him later on. This obviously replaces the Lester sequence where, because that was not shot, Lester had to shoot a new scene where Clark and Lois are in the the honeymoon suite and like falls over into a fire, or drops his glasses into the fire, and then he's not burned. This is actually better. I like this way better, to be honest. This is much, and it's a screen test shot. It's amazing to me. Again, it's a good version though, for sure.
It is, and again, I just really, again, I feel almost bad, but it's like I really do prefer this version, pretty much across the board comparatively.
If we're going to say that, I'll bring up my two. There are two line reads in the Lester version, which I like better in the Lester version than the Donner cut. Those are, at one point, Zod says to Lex Luthor, "Why do you say this to me when you know I will kill you for it?" In the Donner cut, it's very straightforward. It just, "Why do you say this to me when you know I'm going to kill you for it?" For whatever reason, Lester, it's just a different version, and it's just like a little bit campier, but for some reason, it works. He's like, "Why do you say this to me when you know I will kill you for it?" That I like better than Lester cut. And the big sequence, my biggest disappointment about Donner cut, so stupid, so petty, so nitpicky, is when our trio of villains take over the Daily Planet, and Clark is up getting his powers back, and Superman returns. Superman flies up to the Daily Planet, and in the Donner cut, he says something that fucked up. Something like, honestly, it's a stupid line. Haven't you ever heard of freedom of the press?
Oh my God.
Which is awful. But the Lester cut, he kind of comes up. He comes up and echoes the trucker and just goes, "Zod, would you care to step outside?" That is a badass moment. And that's the badass moment I missed when I go, "Oh, wait, no, that's not the line you use. Use the other line there for that one."
Yeah, I don't love that, to be honest. It's not my favorite.
No, he hasn't heard of freedom of the press. He's only been here for like a day and a half or whatever long it's been. They don't care.
Okay, can we talk about how they keep calling it Planet Houston early on, by the way? And the sequence in which they're on the moon and they attack the astronauts before they arrive on Earth is fantastic.
Fantastic.
A great way to set up how they are learning that they have powers, and also how kind of terrible they are, because she so willingly kills the one, watches him suffer, and then kicks him farther into space.
Yes, the great Sarah Douglas, great performance in this small role. She's wonderful. If fans of the channel, I have that show review I do with Lego. You go to the V franchise. She actually makes an appearance in V: The Final Battle as a alien leader, and she's cruel and vindictive there as well. But I love her in this movie. She is just a perfect badass second to General Zod that you are scared of. Are scared of. She's like this little, she's an attractive woman, and she's really like, she's not like intimidating looking to a degree, but then you're like, oh, but she's a badass and she will kick your ass. And
also really, I'm not gonna lie, I think it explains a lot of my choice in what I've been attracted to in my life.
That's fair. Totally fair.
Very pretty.
Very, very pretty. Absolutely.
Drives me nuts. I'm like, God damn, she just killed someone.
Oh,
what the? Damn. Now You See Me 4 is in the works.
Oh, is it really?
We haven't even seen the third yet.
Oh God, of course. That doesn't surprise me.
More breaking news. So why is all this breaking, by the way? It's because CinemaCon is going on right now. So Lionsgate is holding a panel. That's where this is all coming from. Interesting, man.
Luca Guadagnino doing American Psycho.
What was that?
Luca Guadagnino.
Oh, is that official now?
It's official, yeah. Interesting news dropping, for sure.
I'll say this. I don't love American Psycho, so I'm totally fine with them doing this again.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think
it's a little over. It's funny. It's the one film I actually would call overrated by some and overhated by others. I'm kind of right in the middle with it. I think there's some great moments in it, but I'm not like one that I go back to all the time either.
Right.
But either way. Anyway, back to our trio. We do also, by the way, have the second appearance of John Ratzenberger as a controller, getting his other cameo appearance. This time he's Houston. He is Houston at that point. Love them coming down to Earth, or coming down to Houston. Love that sequence with the farmer guy. I don't know what you call him. The guy just like the fisherman guy who's just kind of hanging out by the
guy who looks a little bit like Jim Varney.
Yes.
And I was 100% like, is that supposed to be Jim Varney? Because it kind of looks like Jim Varney. I'm pretty sure it's not, but sure kind of looked like him.
I do have a put my glasses up nerd nitpick moment during this sequence as well, because the snake bites Sarah Douglas and hurts her somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Like bullets go bounce off and everything else to Superman, because they have the same power to Superman now, mind you. And bullets bounce off everything, and she acts like the snake actually were able to penetrate her skin somehow.
Kryptonian snake. It's fine.
Sure. Again, like I
Kryptonian
said,
snake. It's fine.
Whatever. It's not a big deal. It's nitpicky, I know, but I was like, what the hell's that? But great, but it's still great overall. The town sequence is my favorite one with them, where they go into this small podunk town. They go past Boss Hogg and Roscoe P. Coltrane. That's how I look at the sheriff deputy there.
Yeah, I do.
Did that some bitch just give me an order?
I just, yeah, dude. I don't know. That whole sequence is great. It's also, again, it's great at really showing how terrible they are.
Right. Yeah.
And this whole idea that they're going to make everyone bow down before them, which leads to that great scene in the White House when with the stand-in president and him bowing down immediately, and he goes, "You're not the leader here. A leader wouldn't bow down to me that fast."
You're right. And it's such a
God,
powerful moment. Yeah.
How good is Terrence Stamp in this, by the way?
God, Chancellor Valorum is phenomenal. Sorry.
Also, he is the last credited person in the movie.
How is that possible?
Well, it's okay, because if I remember, so funny enough, Gene Hackman is still top billed,
which is amazing.
Then it's Chris Reeve, who finally gets second billing, and then it's Marlon Brando.
Right.
But Terrence Stamp, who is the main villain of the film, is Terrence Stamp.
I mean, I know the "and" is a big valued credit in Hollywood, because it's the last name you see before the film kind of begins in a way, or whatever. Usually that's what happens. But still, it's usually for that featured supporting actor gets that billing, usually like that, kind of like they're not in the film much, but they have a big meaty moment or something, or they're a venerable actor in a meaty moment kind of thing. That's what that usually is for. It's not for the main villain in the film like this, Terrence. But yeah. I also want to throw out there real quick before I go past it. I already mentioned Boss Hogg. I do love the holy skunk sweat.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny how many people have little cameos in these movies, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Because, I mean, again, we had Larry Hagman in the last one. Again, Ratzenberger in two of them. It's just kind of fun. It's always funny when you see stuff like that. Ratzenberger's like the king of cameos, man.
Yeah.
Is there any other actor who's made more cameos in movies than John Ratzenberger? And that includes all the stuff with Pixar and things like that. Because dude was notorious for being in every one of those movies.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. Maybe Steve Buscemi. Maybe at some point, in the 90s, he started becoming that Ratzenberger kind of guy in a way, everything. But maybe that's about
maybe.
Ratzenberger is.
I'm so curious.
For sure. Yeah. We haven't mentioned yet at all was we haven't mentioned Lex and his role in this. And I have to say, one reason this film is not an 11 out of 11 for me is the fact that we lose Ned Beatty so early on in the film.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Otis gets a little shafted.
What a mistake. I mean, I understand that it's the Zod trio and Lex is kind of the other person with them. But losing Otis, that chemistry that Gene Hackman and Ned Beatty had, that just lost me points for sure. I wanted more, because he does so much great work in the 10 minutes he's in the prison.
Well, he's literally bringing the movie down by bringing down him not being able to climb into you're making a fat joke in the worst way possible. I just feel bad for Otis. I love all the scenes with them in the prison before he escapes. I think that's amazing.
Where is he going? North. Why would he go north? Ski? That little black box in our cell.
Yeah.
And
God, he's so good.
The best one is him and Hackman together during the prison breakout. What? vacuum
Oh
sealer.
yeah. And also, the world's worst guards, by the way,
Oh my god.
because the light hits them more than once, and no one sees them.
I guess like it shows that he's like doing this while he's kind of looking at the game. I guess that's what they're trying to do. Is like kind of doing this whole like I'm looking at the light going, but I'm actually really watching the game. But it is they're bad. They're bad guards at that point.
It's amazing to me how much this movie manages to have kind of two separate villains, and in a way, you could almost argue three because Jor-El is almost a villain to Clark's story in some capacity. For a movie that is
And the trucker,
oh
you got the trucker
yeah,
in
and
there.
the trucker, yeah, but like for a movie that's 2 hours, they balance everything really well, and I never feel like this movie is overstuffed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is also the argument that if they had got Otis out, like, what would Otis's role be
Right,
when you have Lex there? I mean, Miss Pressmarker is in the beginning as well, and she's gone after the
Miss
beginning sequence as
Tessmacher.
well. Miss Tessmacher. What I say?
Tessmacher. You said press marker. It sounded
Oh,
like.
no, Miss Tessmacher. Miss
Oh, maybe
Tessmacher.
that's why. Maybe it was just the way you said it. It didn't
That could
sound
be.
like you said it.
That
And I
could
was
be.
like, Tessmacher, bro, not Tessmacher. Like what?
Miss Tessmacher. Miss
Um,
Tessmacher.
yeah, it's amazing because to your point, like, look, I love Otis and I would love more Otis, but I think that they do the right thing ultimately leaving him behind because there's a lot happening in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that they do a great job at making sure that everyone kind of gets a moment. Everyone
Right.
gets something to do. Every character has their place.
Right.
Um,
I mean, they didn't have to have Ned Beatty at all. They didn't have to have
no.
Otis at all. They could have had it like Lex breaks out of prison and then goes north and figures it all out on his
Yeah, at least
own.
you get anything from
You
him.
get a little something, something. That
Yeah.
point. But
So
it
good.
just sometimes seeing it, I'm kind of like, oh, I wish I need more. I love that. I love that dynamic so much between the two of
Mhm.
them. But,
I'll say this. How do you feel about Clark deciding to go back and beat up Rocky at the diner once he is Superman? I I'm so curious because ultimately it doesn't really bother me, but there is something to be said about Superman also like going out of his way to beat this dude up, especially because he's already changed time. So like
right.
he's kind of beating up a guy who may not know why he's being beaten up, although clearly he also knows because he's just kind of a piece
Recognize
of
them.
shit.
And he also recognizes them. So
Yeah.
obviously it happened. Like that's the whole weird thing about the time thing. You're like, what did you change and why do they know who knows what's going on here? I don't get the time travel
Yeah, the
thing.
time travel's not always
It's not great.
spectacular.
Seriously. My thoughts are as a kid, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was funny as hell. Brilliant.
Right.
As an adult, I kind of like, is that something Superman would do? It feels like is that a little petty for Superman, but at the same time, no. Superman. I end up arriving in the fact that you know what Superman wants to handle a bully. He handles the small problems just as much as he was going to handle the big problems. He knows this guy's a bully. He bullies this whole crew all the time. You can tell that. So he's just going to go he'll get a little bit of vengeance, but at the same time, he's also like just teaching somebody a lesson who needs to be taught a lesson, and I'm okay with it ultimately, especially since
Okay.
it's a fun moment, and also
No,
so
no,
I'll,
it
I'll give
is.
it some I'll give it some leeway. You know what I
It's
mean?
one of those things that from time to time I do wonder how people react to it because in the same way I can see it being kind of like a controversial thing. You know what
Right,
I'm saying? Because it's
right,
like it's kind of up there with what you do when it comes to Zod at
right.
the end of Man of Steel. Like, is that the right thing for him to do? Is it the wrong thing for him to do? Like, but I kind of like him putting someone in his place who needs to be put in his place because
Yeah.
that dude is treating everyone like shit, like all the time.
And it's a funny moment. Like everybody's looking at him. Oh, I've been working out.
God, it's so good. It's so good. You're right, though. It does call into question a little bit, though, exactly how all this stuff works with the time travel. Like, who knows what? Why are we doing this? Like, there's some stuff that's really good and makes sense, and there's some stuff that does not, and
Right.
that's okay too.
Exactly. At that point, it's like okay. I mean, if I can't fault it, especially because we don't have an alternative, and I don't. We know Donner wouldn't have ended Superman 2 this way now because we know he would have gone on and done something different because he wouldn't have repeated the beat, for sure. So I can't fault him for that necessarily. I can fault it in Superman 1 a little bit because I'm kind of like, well, you know what, you had to finish, you could finish it, and that was your choice to have that kind
Right.
of tricky moment. William Harrell, I still gave it an 11 out of 11, so I don't want to hear your shit. He came at me saying, Superman's still perfect, no mistakes. Sure, okay. But
look,
you have
again,
an ending.
it's not that movies have to be perfect to be rated perfectly.
100%.
Please look at The Beekeeper. There's nothing. The Beekeeper is not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, but also it is a perfect film by every stretch of the imagination.
It is perfectly Statham. So, sure. Let's see. Other moments in here throughout that were great. Oh, you know what moment I liked? I'm looking at different sequences in here. AI Dad. It's a meta moment. AI Dad looks at Lois when Clark is gonna get his power taken away. It's a moment where Martin Barrett looks over. It looks like he's looking right at Lois at this point, and it's such a great. I don't even like. Is it possible? Is it like stupid? Because like, who is this guy? Why is he looking at like? Does he understand it really? Because he's not. He's an AI. Is he there? But it makes you think that there's definitely more to there than we know as far as the AI situation goes. He understands that he wants to make sure she understands what's happening because Clark doesn't know she's there.
No.
Clark has no idea she's there, and he's like, "I hope you understand what this guy's doing for you at this point," kind of thing. I hope you understand what's going on. You might need to be the one to support him now and make sure this goes the way you want it to go.
Yeah, I love that whole thing. Well, look, man, again, I would argue that it's Lois and Clark's relationship that really helps sell this movie ultimately. That and Clark's journey in like fully understanding the importance of being Superman. And I gotta say, in a lot of ways, this might sound a little weird, but go with me. I do think that a lot of what Superman and Superman 2 do, especially in these versions of the movies, the Donner one specifically, so much of what the Spider-Man trilogy that Marvel just did is playing off of Spider-Man having to like continually learn the importance of all these things to become Spider-Man, which is ultimately why he does what he does at the end of No Way Home. I do think that there's something to be said about how these two movies handle the origin over two films, basically, of Superman becoming Superman.
Right.
They do that over three films, very specifically in the Spider-Man movies. And I think that a lot of that is grounded in what they did here.
Well, let's be completely honest. If we're going to be completely honest, there's a lot of superhero films that owe a lot to these films.
Oh, 100%.
The granddaddy of them all for a reason, absolutely. But specifically Spider-Man, I get what you're saying about that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, even down to, obviously, it's not time travel, but, and I mean, obviously, there's context for the comic books doing that, but it's the way that it's handled in it, and in the way of him even going to try to see Mary Jane at the end of the movie and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is something there
absolutely 100%.
that is very reminiscent of this.
Absolutely. Let's get into the third act. We didn't talk much about the big battle, which obviously is a little shifted a little bit in the Donner cut because they only had shot so much, and Lester definitely pads it a lot with a lot of comedy moments. Like I was surprised at how different it was. Like there's no guy at the phone booth with the toupee blowing around. It's so much more serious, and it's so much for the better that way because the humor really undercuts the severity of the situation. I mean, the severity of the situation is there. It's tricky because these are early special effects. These are old school special effects, and like they're not nearly as laid down. They're wonderful effects for the time, and they work because they're practical effects. They definitely work. But when you're undercutting it with comedy, it kind of makes it a little less severe, and the stakes seem a little lower. You're basically cutting down your stakes. But the Donner cut, the good stuff is about how scared they are, kind of thing. Like my favorite humorous bit is when the Superman shows up and Les goes, Superman, oh thank God. I mean, kill him.
Yeah. Oh, dude. And even the way that Zod looks at him when he says it, because Zod clearly hears him and he's like, what the fuck did you just say?
Yes.
Like, exactly. I love all of that. Again, Terrence Stamp is friggin' terrifying.
Golden.
So, I didn't say, you brought up the extra shots of how the opening of the movie is done, where we see different angles of the original opening from Superman the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the way there's a shot of Stamp's eyes and his mouth, and like the way his face contorts when he's yelling at Jarrell, that is just so scary. And
Yes.
it's why Stamp continues to be such a magnificent actor. The way he can do stuff with his face when
Yes.
he's delivering a line of dialogue is just so good.
So intense.
Yeah. Like, there's a reason that we love him, and I think that, Malcolm McDowell is really good at that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good comparison. I go with
Well,
that.
I used to mix them up a lot when I was younger because they kinda look and sound a little similar.
You're not wrong.
And so but I think that they both have that, like, thing as character actors, and I really appreciate that here, and that again, he's such a great Zod.
Yeah.
If
It's
here's
funny
the
because
thing.
he's not physically intimidating at all. Like, you
Right.
look at him, he's a lanky, smaller guy, but yet the way his intensity is, you believe he's like 10 feet tall and ripped and like gonna kill you easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna say is, like, all things being equal, it's really interesting. Because, like, Michael Shannon in Man of Steel is such a hulking presence comparatively,
Right.
but he's also an incredibly dramatic, great actor.
Absolutely.
So it really works. And you really are scared of Zod in that movie too, in a lot of ways. But I have to say, man, you gotta credit Stamp where it's due, because like that dude is not big, and yet I do feel like if I was in his presence, I would bow down.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
he's
yeah.
that intense,
Mhm.
and that's what you
100%.
need.
So the
Um,
New York fight itself is very good in the Donner Cut. It does. There's a lot of cool stuff that they float around there. We have the Statue of Liberty moment, which is not in the lesser cut. We have the great Coca-Cola
yeah,
sign, which is
yeah,
great, which is
love that.
phenomenal. You have the tossing of the hubcap cover. Love that. The tossing of the bus and the cars and all that. It's very well done and very much of its time. And it actually, without the humor undercutting it, it's very scary. When Superman gets, even though like Superman gets hit by a truck and like we know it's like the movie tries to make it out like he's more in trouble than we know he is because it's Superman. A truck's not going to kill him. But like
Right.
he's down and you just see the three of them like using the super breath to like blow the citizens of New York away, and like that music starts raising. You're just like, damn,
Yeah.
damn, that's powerful stuff right there.
I,
Um,
I love that whole sequence with the truck with Zod trying to blow it up and Clark trying to stop him and like
yes.
using the reflection of all that. Like that stuff is so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I really dig that a lot, in fact, because it's also very cool to have Superman using his brain and how do I fight back against these guys?
Right. And yeah, how does he know it? He knows that he has to fly away. And he's
Mhm.
gonna be called a coward. Remember they call him a coward, but he knows that they want me.
Mhm.
I have to get away from a place where there's all these people around. I can fly back
Yeah.
up to the Fortress of Solitude and have a fight where there's nobody around, and then we can throw down and have a good
Right.
time at that point.
Yeah, I really like that. I really appreciate that. And one thing I do really love about that entire sequence too, and it's something I thought obviously we talked a lot about it with the first movie, and I think especially in this one too, they really lean in on making sure that Superman is saving people during the battle too. And I like that that is the thing that they see as his weakness is
Right.
him saving people. That whole
Absolutely.
thing works because that is who Superman should be. And so to have and it's something that I think, um, again, this is only because 'cause we've seen the trailer. I think it's a thing that Gunn is doing,
Yeah.
a lot of in his movie, is that Superman is going to be saving people
Yeah.
during the battles and things. Because yeah, that shot of him saving the
Protect
little
the
girl
girl.
from the kaiju is amazing, and I love all that stuff because when he saved now, number 1, that woman who just stands there with her baby instead of running away, like, why not just run? But, like, it's fine, it's a movie,
Right,
uh
right.
so you just have to kinda take it as it is, but you're watching it and you're like, "Why? Bitch, run. Run,
Run.
bitch, run. Like,
It's
get the
not
fuck
like
away
that
from
big.
here.
You could get away from that. It's
Yeah,
like not a
run, bitch,
big run.
run.
Get the
Like,
fuck out
just
of
get away from there. What are you doing? Why are you staring at it? Run. Run, woman, run."
here.
So, but otherwise, like, those moments work. Him trying to stop the boulders falling on people
Uh-huh.
and breaking it with his laser vision and stuff like that. It's all great because it shows that Superman cares about these people. He care what, like pets?
Mhm.
Exactly like pets. What? No, he actually likes humans. Like, it is what it is.
Right.
And I love that that also shows how different he is to them
Yes.
because they don't understand that he can love these people and not as people that he wants to tower over, because Zod
Exactly.
wants power. He wants
Yeah.
to rule. And I really like the dichotomy of that.
Yeah, Clark was raised as a human. He has human.
Right.
He's more. That's always been a story about Superman, is that like he is an alien, but the story about Superman is not his alienness; it's his humanity, despite being an alien. Like he's growing up, like, his humanity is his strength for sure. In that, it leads us to the Fortress of Solitude part of the throwdown. And again, Lester pads this with some freaking stupid
Weird
things.
shit.
Like the freaking like the ripping of the Superman symbol off his chest, and then all of a sudden becomes this big like cellophane wrap. What is that? And then like all of a sudden he can split into these visions of it, like like these random Superman powers that are just throwing out there, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. This is just kind of padding it out. The Donner cut is so much more direct, and it works so much better because of it. I think it's just
Well,
like boom, boom,
and
done.
I think that, weirdly enough, is the perfect way to describe this movie, actually.
Yeah.
Is that for all the padding that the Lester cut does, this movie is a lot more concise in most of its stuff. And a part of that is because they never finished shooting the movie, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So there is something to be said about there was only so much they could do. There's no saying that Donner would not have padded it with other things had it gotten finished. But
Absolutely.
considering what we ended up with, which is a pretty much like concise 2-hour film, all that shit that was put into the Lester cut during that sequence, like the Superman S symbol being ripped off his chest and like using it as a weapon, like all of that stuff is gone. Thank God, because
Yeah.
now this sequence actually feels very character driven. It's not a fight anymore. It's a legitimate like chess move.
Yes.
And I like that it's all about brain over brawn at that point.
I do too. I love using Lex Luthor as well. Like he lets
Yes.
them in, knowing Luthor's going to betray him. And we get that sequence in there, and obviously the powers get rearranged. And like the viewer should know what's up. As a kid, I kind of bought into it, but as a viewer, obviously you see the lights on outside while Superman's inside. So it's like that's not what happened last time. So it's different. But that leads to that huge one of the hugest like fist pump moments of my childhood is when he bows before Zod, takes his hand,
Yeah.
and just starts squeezing it, and that triumphant John Williams music plays. Da, 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 and you're like, oh, yes!
Dude. Well, and when he's holding Zod's hand and he's like breaking it, and you see Zod's face because Stamp sells it so well,
So perfectly,
dude,
like,
I get
oh,
amped. It's such a great moment because, again, also Superman isn't trying to like kill him and defeat him like that in
right,
like a big like fight. He
right,
just picks him up
right.
and just tosses him aside.
Does end up killing him though, like I said before, just so you know
Yeah,
out there,
well,
theoretically.
theoretically.
But then Nod, of course,
Honestly,
big dumb
I'm
Nod.
sure had there been a sequel, we would have found out he was still alive.
I'm sure there'd be like some kind of prison down there or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know, whatever. But the funnier part to me, I love that next is that Lois gets to knock out Ursa at that point because Ursa
Yeah.
sells it too. She's kind of like, "What the hell is going on? I don't understand." And then she's like, "You know what? You're a real pain in the neck."
Oh, dude. Again, so good. What a great line also.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as only Gene Hackman can be, what? Do you like how they fell for our plan? Trying to sell it again, like that he.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Again, I think that the using Lex in the chess move and him realizing he goes, "Oh, when you went inside there, you were safe. You used it and like you tricked them and you depowered them and you know what? I'm on your side this whole time." And he's like, "Come on, man."
Right. Yep. Get out of here.
It's
Get
so
the hell
good.
out of here. I will throw one minor nitpick. I'll throw it out there. Just something.
That's
It
fine.
still kind of hurts me. It's like so they don't feel going mortal. Like all of a sudden, like don't feel anything. Like all of a sudden the red light goes on. There's like, and all of a sudden they just lose their powers and they don't feel anything about it. Feels a little off to me, but that they would feel something going on.
Maybe. Maybe.
But
But you know what? I'll take what we can get.
again, doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. Like I'm still I still love it for it, but like
Yeah.
it's one of those things I notice on rewatch. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I'll look past that. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much the end of the movie. At that point, we already discussed the other endings of the movie, and
Okay, I have to bring it up though.
okay,
Because I brought it up before we started recording. It just makes me laugh every time. So you can tell that, as we said, like it's very clear that the turning the Earth back sequence is made for this movie. Like, they do it in the first one, and that's fine, but it was very clearly made for this one. But the moment of Jackie Cooper as Perry White, where he's going into the bathroom to brush his teeth while he's smoking a cigar at the same time, is one of the most hysterical things I've ever seen in my life. And you couldn't get more like, boy, have the times changed or what, than Perry White smoking a cigar in his apartment, getting ready to brush his teeth.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally got the cigar in his mouth while he's putting toothpaste on the toothbrush. And you're like, bro, what in the world? Like, come on, man. You're smoking a cigar. Are you telling me? So either A, you're not going to finish the cigar, or B, you're going to brush your teeth and then finish the cigar,
right.
which sounds almost worse. Like, look, don't waste a cigar. Number one, Jackie Cooper, you know better, you bastard. But also, you're telling me that that motherfucker is going to go now and finish the cigar after he brushed his teeth? I don't want mint being anywhere near the taste of a cigar if that's what's happening. What the fuck are you thinking, my guy? It's a good thing that Superman stopped you from making a really bad decision and you turned time backwards.
That might be the real reason he did it, actually. You know,
Honestly, maybe, because it's a fucking insult to every cigar across the world. And I'm not really like a cigar guy, but come the fuck on, man.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
even I know that's a faux pas.
Absolutely. So, all right. Anything else that you want to add about this movie?
Look, man, this I kind of feel like I've covered the bases on all of it. I'll again just kind of where I lie with this is that I do think that this is the definitive version of the film for me. I think that it's very clear that we were kind of robbed at the end of the day, not just in this cut of the movie not being the one that was released, but I think it really kind of killed this franchise. The moment that Donner was fired is where this franchise went off the rails. I hate to say it, but it's true, especially again when you hear him say that he had ideas for more movies with Reeve and Kidder. Like, this guy would have kept going. Now, granted, the other side of that is had he done that, we may never have gotten things like Lethal Weapon and stuff like that.
That's a
So,
great point.
maybe it ended up being for the best in some capacity for us, but it is a little bit of a bummer in that same regard, because you can tell that there's more stories to be had here when this is all said and done. But if this is where the franchise ends under Donner, I am happy to have gotten the 2 movies that we've gotten.
100%.
I think that I didn't really bring this up. I think it's really incredibly sad that Brando and Reeve didn't live long enough to see this version of Superman 2 finally out in the world. I think that I got real emotional at the beginning because it starts with a card at the beginning that says for Chris, like because he had already passed away by the time this came out. And it was
Right.
like this moment that I realized that he never really got to see this version of the movie, which was the version that he so desperately believed in.
Right.
And it really broke my heart. And I'm glad that they were able to see it through. I'm glad that it was finally finished, but God, does it hurt knowing that like Chris and Marlon never got to see it.
Yeah. Definitely more Chris. I don't think Marlon actually would have given a shit, to be honest with you. So I feel
No, but I mean, there's something to be said
But
about
I get
his
it.
performance being put back in and stuff, but
Agreed.
especially the Chris of it
Chris
all,
of it
because
all. Absolutely.
and the card even says without him we never would have believed a man could fly, and that remains true. And
Mhm.
I'll say this, it's the perfect 1-2 punch of a movie. These versions of the films together are very much what I anticipated a Superman film from the 70s to look like. Chris Reeve continued to be Superman. Margot
Right.
Kidder continued to be Lois Lane. These are wonderful films, and it sucks because we're about to whack through some real rough movies.
It's amazing how quickly it falls off. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
For sure. In like 4 movies, it goes from
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the quickest fall offs. Yeah, it is. It's going to be one of the quickest fall offs I think any franchise has ever had.
Yeah.
And I think the truth of the matter is that so much of what has happened with Superman as an IP at Warner Brothers can be attributed to what happened to Superman 2. I
Mm,
think that what happened with firing Donner is continually been exactly what we have seen with this franchise over and over again, which is a lot of people meddling and overthinking every decision to the point that it kneecaps the next film in some capacity.
100%.
Um, it's something we'll talk about when we get to BVS. It's something that we'll talk about with Superman Returns because we never got the sequel to it. It's the thing that we'll talk about with Superman 3 and Superman 4. Like, this is a tale as old as time, as far as I'm concerned, that every time we've turned around, you can point to what happened to Superman 2 as the one thing that has held this franchise back from ever being great, is that too many people continue to meddle with it when they think they know
Formula.
better.
Absolutely. There is a formula, people. There's a
Yeah.
simple formula, as Jimmy Kennedy from Scream would say. Um, so let's rank this some bitch. We got to rank things on a scale of 1 to
Yeah.
11 here on PLD Projects. We both gave Superman the movie a perfect 11 out of 11. No surprises there. Superman 2, the Donner cut. Where does that fall for you?
You know, man, it's interesting because obviously I have such a fondness for the original. I think it's such a spectacular movie. It's so well made. It's so good. And I really love this version of the movie. It's clearly a step down for certain reasons, mostly because, again, it's not fully finished either. I mean, this is as close to a fully finished film as we're going to get. I think because the ending falls apart a little bit in having to repeat the beats of the first movie, and they never got to finish it. Although I will say, we didn't bring this up. The scene with Lois and Clark at the end when they're on the rooftop and he takes her home and
Mm,
she goes, "Your secret is safe with me," and she's crying, and he goes, "Don't worry, I know it is," and it's that hard decision of he knows that he's about to undo this,
right. Yeah.
and Lois knows that he's going to undo it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it is so beautiful, but it is so heartbreaking,
Yeah.
and
100%.
again, that's because you really believe them.
Right.
You really love them. I think I can be a lot more forgiving to having to rewatch the same sort of ending again because of that scene.
I
It's
will.
not the first film,
Yeah.
but I am giving this a 10.
Okay. Okay. That's a solid point. Absolutely. I can't argue with that. I will say, I'm going to say this now. It's probably a conversation I'll have more the next couple of weeks. Perhaps one of the things we are missing most is the fact that Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve's chemistry is really kind of the secret sauce.
Yeah,
Because Margot Kidder
100%.
is pretty much she's absent the next two. I mean, she makes appearances the next two films, but it's not Superman and Lois really the whole time,
No.
and that really degrades the film as far as I'm concerned. Like it really, I mean, and that's not any knock on like Annette O'Toole who plays Lana Lang in Superman 3. She's great. She's good at what she does. It's just that there was something special about Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder that was
Yeah.
hard to duplicate. 10 is a great call. I will say I went a little bit less, I think. And I honestly would say I probably should have gone a little bit even lesser but nostalgia does bump it up for me a bit. I will
I
heavy
I
lifting.
I
I'm
also
gonna
think it's the miracle of it, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a hard thing to grade because of the
Yeah.
incompleteness of it all, how the way they had it. They did a phenomenal job of completing the uncompletable. I'm gonna give it a 9.5.
All right,
Um,
hell yeah. I think that's more than fair.
I we don't have to do this, and you don't have to do this because you haven't rewatched it recently. I did rewatch Lester Cut in the last couple of years. I think if I had to grade it just as a point of comparison, I would have given the Lester Cut probably a 7.5 or so.
Yeah. I don't know. So again, it's ever since this has been the cut that's been available to us, I have not really I think I've only gone back to the Lester cut once in
Mhm.
that time. Um so off of very hazy high school memories, and that's not just because of the weed in my life. I promise you.
Right.
It's just that it's been that long since I've seen it.
Yeah.
It would probably be close to that. Because like I said, even as a kid, I had the hard time of being like, something's weird about this one, and I don't know exactly what it is.
Right.
And now in hindsight, having known what everything was, it makes it easy to be like, huh,
Right.
okay. And so I do hold a little of a grudge towards that movie in some capacity too. So about a 7 probably.
That makes sense. I'm not going to put that in our official rankings, but I
Right.
fully agree. I mean, the core of the movie is still there. That's the important part. That's why it's as high as it is because the core of the movie is still there. It's just the superfluous stuff that knock it down a few points here and there overall. But yeah, so 11 and 9, we're pretty close. 9.5 for me, 10 point for you. Makes sense. That's going to do it for our Superman 2 podcast. We are now going to be taking on Superman 3 in 2 weeks, which is the Richard Lester fully directed installment. And I will say one thing: this film may not be as good as Superman 1 and 2 for sure, but there's at least one sequence which, with nostalgia, holds up for me that I will watch every time with a fist pump, and we'll talk about that next time on PLD Projects.
I am so curious to rewatch this because I have not seen this film in probably 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Like, so in the same way that we talked about Nightmare, where I didn't really go back and rewatch those films, whenever I came to watching Superman, it was always Superman and the Donner Cut and Superman Returns. Like, that has been since 06, 07. That has pretty much been the way that I've watched these movies.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I think I watched, I think I watched it once during our time during the Schmodown. So I've probably seen it once in 15 years. I don't remember a lot about it. I'm very curious to rewatch it. I'm a little scared to rewatch it, if I'm being completely honest. So it'll be real interesting to do that. You know, and I know it's weird. I'm a little sad that we're doing this in the middle of also getting ready to do Doctor Who, because it'll have been really nice to be like, man, these are a little rough, but at least I'm watching other good superhero movies around it for the podcast.
Right.
Now we're going to be talking about Doctor Who instead, because we're getting real close to Doctor Who coming back in 2 weeks, which means that the Patreon stuff is going to take a slight pause, not long, but like a slight pause for Doctor Who before we get back into the rest of the MCU. So I think we're going to get through Thor.
Yes. We're going to do Thor. That's right. If you are on the Patreon, instead of getting us every 2 weeks, you're getting us actually every week, because on our off weeks, we're putting on the Patreon our MCU rewatch right now. We already have Iron Man, Incredible Hulk. Iron Man 2 will debut next week. We're recording Thor next week. So therefore, the week after that, we'll see Thor on the Patreon as well. But you're right. Doctor Who's coming on strong, and that's going to put a crimp in our... We can only do so many podcasts in a week, so...
Yeah. I mean, look, we have time, but we only have so much time.
Right.
So we
don't have a TARDIS either, so we can't go back. Yeah, we can't fly around the world really fast to bring back time either.
Man. So yeah, we're doing the thing. So Doctor Who should be starting here pretty damn soon. And if you're not on the Patreon already, I highly recommend it. Like you said, I mean, if you're on the Patreon, you're getting a podcast a week from us. One is the one that is live, obviously, that you guys get, which will be Superman 2, like right now. But you could go and listen to Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk and get ready for Iron Man 2, because why wouldn't you want to?
Absolutely. Also, YouTube membership as well. That's another way you can do. You can do that for sure. So take a glance at that if you want. If you can help us, great. If you can't, I get it. But you can help us other ways, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. We love talking to you guys about this stuff. Let us know what you think. Do you like the Donner Cut? Maybe you like the Lester Cut better. Maybe you're out there, one of those people. I don't know you, but I'm willing to listen to you and let me know.
Leave those comments, because we actually like talking with you guys. If you have your feelings about the Lester Cut, like, I'd be super interested to hear what your take is and what your feelings are, because if that is your preferred version, please let me know why. I'm so curious. Like, I could tell you if it's the ending, I get it.
Yeah, I totally get it as well. I absolutely do. So that's it. PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me wherever social medias are sold, at PJ Campbell, usually over on Blue Sky and Instagram. The bad place is still the bad place. I don't spend a lot of time over there if I can avoid it. But yeah, otherwise hanging out here with this fine gentleman to my virtual left, I guess, on your left. On your left. But yeah, man, we're here doing the thing, getting ready for some Doctor Who, getting ready for... It's going to be a good summer. It's going to be an interesting summer. We got a lot coming on. You guys are going to get a lot of extra stuff this year. Like we were saying, with the Doctor Who stuff on the way, we've also got Ballerina. We've also got Conjuring 4. We're going to have Superman, the James Gunn Superman. Like there's a lot of stuff we're going to be doing podcasts about that are also related to the things that we're doing, on top of, if you're on the Patreon or the YouTube subscribe, get that Marvel content, baby, because by the end of the year, we're going to basically be through phase 2 and you guys are going to be freaking stoked.
That's right. That's right. And we do try to, like we said, like PJ said, we try to insert things, franchises that we have completed. We try to insert if they have a new installment. We're getting Ballerina. We'll probably interrupt. We'll definitely interrupt our Superman run. We're gonna do our Superman run. We'll do Ballerina, I believe. Right now, it's scheduled to be between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. At that point, and we're gonna do again. We're gonna be doing Conjuring 3, for example. We're talking about that at some point as well. A lot of cool stuff coming up. We're into the Ghostbusters after Superman. That's an idea. Ghostbusters
and Men in Black.
And then Men in Black as well is one of the things we're going to do for sure. We're going through those as well. Got a lot of cool things coming up on this show as well as other shows. So this PLD Project is full of shows. We got Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast that Maddie and I do every week. Review a show about V that Lego and I are hate watching the remake at this point. We are almost done before we move on to other stuff. That's actually going to be a fun podcast. I'll throw it out there for if you don't like V or aren't into V, you can still watch it soon, because they're going to get to the point where we're going to be covering some books that they did, and in between, while we're reading the books, we might have episodes where we talk about installments that, like, movies that influenced V or V influence, like Independence Day or things like that, Alien Nation, potentially movies that Mark Singer and Michael Ironside were in. It could be bad horror 80s horror films that PJ will actually love to watch with us at that point. We got that going on. Class Action, the show we do monthly with Maddie and Richard Jarvie, I believe. Now our next episode is going to be early May. We're going to do The Accountant versus The Accountant 2, because that's going to come out, and we're going to have fun with that. Did I mention everything? Oh, my Queen podcast I do every week. That's on the sister YouTube channel. It's on audio feed, and actually I hit 1,000 subscribers on that podcast, on that YouTube channel. So I actually have a membership going to go there where I can get early episodes of that. I think that'll do it. You can find me on Blue Sky as well, on the old Blue Sky, because that's where I hang out always. I don't even do Instagram. I just do Blue Sky. That's about it. But yeah, that's gonna be it. We will see you next time. Thanks again, PJ. And always a blast to do this with you.
I enjoy talking shop with you, and then also trying to get us not sued, but also sued by Brett Goldstein for,
PJ's really desperate. He's really desperate. Notice me, Brett. Please notice me, Daddy.
That is where I'm at, to be fair. I am 100% in the mood for that to continue to be a thing. So, hey, Brett Goldstein, Death Daddy, please pay attention to us.
Take care, guys. We'll see you.